At the gym, Hyan, a dedicated fitness trainer, observed members working hard to build their strength. He admired their efforts, believing that the hard work put in here would always pay off. As he watched a woman's face flush with effort during her workout, he couldn't help but notice the results of her dedication. His thoughts wandered, appreciating the energy in the gym, though he quickly refocused when the manager called him over. The manager confronted Hyan, questioning why he seemed distracted by the members' appearances. Hyan explained that as a trainer, observing clients during their workouts was part of his job. The manager, unconvinced, advised him to stay professional and not focus on anything that could be misinterpreted. Hyan nodded, though he found it challenging to ignore the lively atmosphere around him. Nearby, another trainer was helping a woman adjust her posture. He guided her carefully, explaining how to engage her back muscles while keeping his hands on her waist to ensure proper form. Hyan, watching from a distance, felt uneasy about the trainer's approach, wondering if it was too hands-on. He muttered to himself, questioning the boundaries of such interactions. The manager, noticing Hyan's reaction, encouraged him to learn from observing others, emphasizing that building trust with clients was key. Hyan expressed concern that some actions might make clients uncomfortable, but the manager brushed it off, suggesting that the members seemed happy with the attention. He warned Hyan to keep improving and said he'd be watching his progress closely. After his shift, Hyan walked outside, still frustrated by the other trainer's behavior. A car pulled up, and inside were the same trainer and the woman from earlier. The trainer teased Hyan, calling him a skinny monkey and urging him to step up his game. He hinted that strong relationships with clients could lead to better opportunities, leaving Hyan annoyed and envious of the trainer's confidence. As they drove off, Hyan recognized the woman, suspecting the trainer had a pattern of getting too close with clients. Moments later, Hyan's cousin Sang-mi appeared, playfully grabbing his arm. Startled but shyly pleased, Hyan remarked that she looked different, teasing her about her usual casual style. Sang-mi laughed, kicking him lightly in response, and they headed to a nearby restaurant to catch up. Over dinner, Sang-mi asked about Hyan's job as a trainer, poking fun at his thin frame. Hyan defended himself, insisting his physique was popular with clients. Sang-mi teased him further, asking if he was surrounded by beautiful women at the gym. Hyan brushed it off, saying it wasn't like that, though Sang-mi jokingly wondered if he'd ever notice anyone else with a childhood friend like her around. When Sang-mi expressed interest in joining his gym, Hyan was surprised but hesitant, worried she might find his workplace embarrassing. Meanwhile, the other trainer and the woman from the gym arrived at a hotel for what he called a final workout session. He offered to massage her to ease the day's strain, focusing on stretches to help her relax. After the session, the woman expressed interest in more personal training, clearly pleased with his guidance. As she rested, the trainer's thoughts drifted to Sang-mi, wondering why she kept crossing his mind. The next day at the gym, Hyan was coaching a woman, instructing her to adjust her hips for proper form. Suddenly, Sang-mi walked in, catching him off guard. The client, eager for his attention, asked him to stay and help with her posture. Hyan apologized, explaining that a friend had arrived, but before he could reach Sang-mi, the other trainer swooped in. He greeted Sang-mi warmly, offering to show her around the gym and insisting she come with him first. Hyan, stuck with his client, felt a pang of frustration as the trainer seized the moment, leaving him unable to intervene. While training a woman at the gym, Hyan's thoughts drifted to Sang-mi and the other trainer. He wondered why their enrollment talk was taking so long and what they might be doing. The woman he was coaching interrupted, suggesting he adjust his hands lower to help her form. Hyan barely registered her request when Sang-mi emerged from a nearby room. Hyan quickly told the woman to take a break and hydrate, then turned to Sang-mi. She playfully scolded him for not greeting her when she arrived, assuming he'd be the first to welcome her. Hyan apologized, explaining he was busy teaching and missed her message about coming. Sang-mi, excited about the gym, shared that she'd been offered 2 free classes if she signed up and was eager to start. Hyan, swamped with clients, suggested she come back tomorrow. Sang-mi laughed, clarifying she hadn't asked him to be her coach, catching him off guard. The other trainer approached, instructing Sang-mi to change into workout clothes. As she left, He turned to Hyun, asking if there was anything romantic between them. Hyun insisted Sang-mi was just a childhood friend. Nothing more. The trainer nodded, promising to guide her well, leaving Hyun uneasy. Later, as the trainer coached Sang-mi, he instructed her to stretch her arms fully and position them at a right angle. Meanwhile, Hyun worked with his client, who grew frustrated when he kept focusing on squats, distracted by watching Sang-mi. He apologized, refocusing on her session. Afterward, Sang-mi called out to Hyun, saying she was leaving. He offered to walk with her, but the manager reminded him it was his turn to clean the gym. Disappointed, Hyun watched Sang-mi leave and began cleaning, grumbling to himself. He felt annoyed that Sang-mi didn't want him as her coach and believed clients only cared about trainers with impressive physiques. The manager, a woman, suddenly tapped his back, asking what he was thinking and if he was slacking on cleaning. She invited him to help her instead, beginning to stretch and asking for his assistance. Hyun hesitated but supported her as she stretched her legs, unsure of her intentions. The manager critiqued his passive approach, explaining that physical contact, done correctly, built trust with clients. She guided him to press harder and use his body weight to deepen the stretch, emphasizing key points like hand angles. Hyun grew uncomfortable, questioning how close he should get as their positions became awkward. They quickly stood up. The manager praised his effort, assuring him that following her advice would attract more clients. She then asked about Sang-mi, noting her beauty and teasingly probing if she was Hyun's first love. Hyun clarified they were just friends who lived in the same building, not together. The manager casually mentioned that Sang-mi had left with the other trainer, Coach Dong, leaving Hyun stunned. After finishing, Hyun stepped outside and tried calling Sang-mi, but she didn't answer. His mind raced, wondering if she was working out with Dong. He headed to her apartment, where her mother greeted him, saying Sang-mi hadn't returned yet. As they spoke, a red car pulled up, and Sang-mi stepped out with Dong. She spotted Hyun, surprised, and asked why he was there. Hyun, his voice tight, asked where she'd been, his thoughts swirling with suspicion. Sang-mi's eyes widened as she saw her mother with Hyun outside their apartment. She asked what they were doing, and Hyun, his voice sharp, questioned where she'd been. Sang-mi, confused, reminded him they'd just seen each other at the gym. When he pressed about where she went afterward, she bristled, asking why she owed him an explanation. Her mother, sensing tension, grabbed Hyun's arm and insisted they all go inside, brushing off his protests. Sang-mi agreed, noting Hyun looked exhausted from work and should rest, bidding him good night. Her mother, undeterred, offered to cut fruit, ignoring Sang-mi's comment about avoiding fruit at night, and ushered them into the house. Later, alone in his bed, Hyun's thoughts swirled around Sang-mi. He recalled how, a year after his family moved to Seoul, Sang-mi's family settled on the floor above theirs. Both families, hailing from rural areas, bonded quickly. As kids, Hyun and Sang-mi became close friends. Classmates often teased Hyun for his small, frail frame, but Sang-mi, tall for her age, always stepped in to defend him. He felt deep gratitude for her, his only true friend. Over time, he grew stronger and no longer needed her protection, but his appreciation never faded. A memory surfaced. Sang-mi playfully teased him by resting her leg on him, joking it wasn't heavy. Hyun had grumbled, pushing her foot away, annoyed but secretly amused by her antics. He'd stormed off, but the moment lingered in his mind. The next day at the gym, Hyun noticed Sang-mi's absence and texted her, asking why she didn't show up. She replied that her body ached from the previous workout. He teased that it was due to her lack of regular exercise, offering to visit her later for a massage. She agreed, and Hyun, finishing his shift, walked home, wondering if she'd be there. Realizing he forgot his phone at the gym, he doubled back. As he retrieved it, he muttered about the messy state of the place, noting it was Coach Dong's turn to clean. A strange noise from the storeroom caught his attention. Curiosity pulled him closer, and he peeked inside, spotting Dong and the manager engaged in what seemed like an intense workout session. Dong complimented the manager, calling her exceptional. She laughed, pointing out his habit of spending time with younger women, though he insisted none compared to her. The manager teased that he always knew what women wanted to hear, calling him the best coach. She then asked about the girl he'd left with last time, referring to Sang-mi, and Hyun leaned in, heart racing, desperate to hear Dong's response. Dong brushed it off as a silly question, leaving Hyun hanging, his mind churning with suspicion. In the storeroom, the manager asked Dong how his time with the girl was, teasing if it was enjoyable. Dong clarified he didn't go with her for fun but to secure her commitment to the gym, a move that benefited them both. He insisted the manager was the only one he had a special connection with. She laughed, accusing him of sweet-talking to keep his position as head coach. Dong boasted no one could replace him, dismissing Hyun as too scrawny to compete. Outside, Hyun overheard, his anger simmering at the insult. Dong continued, claiming he was the reason the gym thrived, challenging the manager to disagree. She reluctantly agreed, and after their workout session, they rested and prepared to leave. Dong bid her goodbye, and as he left, the manager reflected on his arrogance and waning energy, suspecting he relied too heavily on supplements. Noticing Hyun lingering outside, she realized he'd heard everything. Later, Hyun walked alone, processing what he'd witnessed. He hadn't expected the manager, Song, to have such a close relationship with Dong. The gym's reputation for unprofessional behavior didn't surprise him, but he wondered about the girl the manager mentioned, hoping it wasn't Sang-mi. Shaking off the thought, he headed to Sang-mi's apartment. She opened the door, her face covered in a mask, and greeted him casually. Hyun asked about her mother, and Sang-mi explained she was out with his mom for drinks, inviting him inside. Hyun questioned why she skipped the gym, and Sang-mi reminded him her body was sore. He suggested it was lactic acid buildup and recommended stretching to relax her muscles. Noticing a bandage on her wrist, he asked what happened. She brushed it off as an accident from moving heavy items at work. Hyun urged her to be careful, warning that her tired muscles couldn't handle extra strain. Sang-mi teased if he came to scold her, then grabbed his hand, leading him to her room for the massage he'd promised. Sang-mi playfully demanded he start, reminding him of his earlier offer. Hyun hesitated, suggesting she use a yoga roller instead, but Sang-mi mentioned Coach Dong had offered a massage service for sore muscles. Not wanting her to turn to Dong, Hyun agreed to help. As he massaged her back, Sang-mi urged him to press harder and climb onto her to apply more pressure. Hyun found her demanding but complied, working on her back as she relaxed. She praised his efforts, but Hyun grew nervous, noticing she wore little clothing, which made him shy and uneasy as he continued. Hyun paused during the massage, asking Sang-mi if it hurt. She assured him it was fine and shared that she found exercising fun. When he asked about Coach Dong's teaching, Sang-mi casually referred to him as the team leader and praised his gentlemanly demeanor. Hyun, surprised, questioned if Dong was truly polite, his tone betraying irritation. Sang-mi, catching his slip, asked if she'd heard right, then mentioned that coaches often messaged clients about their diets. Hyun tensed, asking if Dong sent her messages. She confirmed he did, frequently, and Hyun mumbled that most coaches did, though he'd thought it was just him. Sang-mi asked him to rub her legs, and as he complied, Hyun probed for her opinion on Dong, noting his popularity with female clients. Sang-mi described Dong as handsome, nice, and fit, unsurprising for a coach. She teased Hyun about his slim frame, claiming it wasn't attractive to girls. Hyun protested, arguing not all girls shared the same tastes. Sang-mi countered that Dong's stocky build was generally preferred, adding that Hyun's less masculine appearance made her comfortable with him touching her legs. Stunned, Hyun asked if that was why she allowed it, and she confirmed, urging him not to overthink and press harder. Relieved by her casual attitude, Hyun admitted he'd been nervous, but Sang-mi insisted their friendship made such things unimportant. She encouraged him to massage her thighs freely, assuring him she'd never think oddly of it. Hyun, reassured, pressed harder, asking if it felt good. Sang-mi nodded, then instructed him to lift her hips to improve circulation, explaining it targeted lymph glands. Hyun hesitated, but she dismissed his embarrassment, guiding him into the position. He asked if it felt strange, but Sang-mi laughed it off, confirming it felt great. Suddenly, her mother walked in, startling them with a questioning look, leaving Hyun frozen. The next day at the gym, the manager stretched alone until Dong approached, playfully tapping her back and warning that without exercise, her figure might suffer. He greeted another woman nearby, exuding confidence. The manager, unimpressed, thought to herself about his arrogance, wondering how to handle him. In a corner, Hyan sat, visibly downcast. He replayed the massage, worried Sang-mi's mother misunderstood his intentions. Regretting giving in to Sang-mi's teasing, he sighed in frustration. The manager approached, startling him by commenting on his poor sales. Hyan, caught off guard, insisted he was working hard. She dismissed his efforts, stressing that hard work meant nothing without results. Noting his potential and appealing body type, she offered to teach him how to succeed, hinting he could be like Dong. Hyan, puzzled, asked what she meant, unsure where her offer would lead. The manager challenged Hyan, asking if he wanted to be the top-selling coach. Hyan admitted it would be great but confessed he was seeking something deeper. He noted Dong's popularity with female clients, assuming girls preferred a stocky physique like Dong's. The manager, surprised, reminded him she'd already said his body type was attractive, gently touching his chest. She asked what skills made a good coach, helping clients lose weight or gain muscle. Hyan hesitated and she clarified it was neither. In this business, she explained, clients wouldn't keep paying if they achieved their goals quickly. A coach needed to be bold, charm the girls, and convince them to book more classes. Pointing across the gym, she directed Hyan's attention to Dong, who was joking with a client about her sore thighs, suggesting they ached from too much fun with a partner. The girl, flustered but amused, denied it, and Dong playfully offered to keep her company. The manager, showing Hyan, asked if they looked like they were exercising. She revealed the girl had already paid for 3 classes with Dong, emphasizing that clients wanted a fun, caring coach, not necessarily a skilled one. Praising Hyan's potential, she recalled how well he assisted her with stretches and complimented his appearance, suggesting he wear his hair up for work. Hyan nodded, agreeing to try. The manager pointed to a girl across the room, urging Hyan to approach her. He hesitated, recognizing her as someone Dong had trained before. Steeling himself, he walked over and greeted her, offering assistance. Noticing Dong was occupied with another client, the girl accepted Hyan's help, asking him to guide her in stretching her waist. Hyan instructed her to exhale and lean forward, focusing on relaxation. His hands pressed carefully, aiming to hit the key points as the manager had taught him. He wondered if it was working but stayed professional, encouraging her to lift her waist slightly. After the session, the girl thanked him and Hyan offered further help if needed. Suddenly, Dong stormed over, accusing Hyan of stealing his client and calling him unprofessional. Hyan and the girl were taken aback. The manager intervened, calmly explaining she'd asked Hyan to help because Dong was busy. She questioned why Dong neglected his client, warning that if the girl stopped paying for classes, he'd be responsible for the loss. Hyan echoed that he only stepped in due to Dong's absence. The manager teased if Dong was afraid Hyan might outshine him, escalating the tension. Hyan tried to defuse the situation, but Dong scoffed, dismissing the girl's value and making a crude remark about their past interactions. He glanced at the door, noting Sang-mi's arrival with a smirk. Sang-mi entered, cheerfully greeting everyone. Hyan's thoughts raced. She hadn't answered his calls but showed up unexpectedly. Dong welcomed her warmly, informing the manager that Sang-mi had paid for a class with him. He suggested she head to the locker room and Sang-mi agreed, hoping she wouldn't regret her choice. Dong reassured her with a laugh, exuding confidence. As they walked away, he shot Hyan a sly, taunting look, leaving Hyan unsettled and grappling with his growing unease about Sang-mi's involvement with Dong. Dong instructed Sang-mi to change for their workout session and she headed to the locker room while he waited outside. Suddenly, the girl he'd previously trained approached, accusing him of neglecting her. She pointed out that another coach, Hyan, had to step in because Dong ignored her. Dong brushed it off, saying he was busy and it was normal for another coach to assist. The girl, unconvinced, mentioned seeing him argue with Hyan over her, questioning if that was his idea of being busy. Dong denied arguing, claiming he was just checking her stretches and excused himself to prepare for a class, dismissing her complaints. The girl, frustrated, threatened to demand a refund. Dong scoffed, telling her to go ahead, noting she already knew the routines and didn't need more classes. He suggested she train with Hyan instead, mockingly asking if she thought they were dating, leaving her stunned and hurt by his callousness. Later, Hyan confronted Sang-mi, upset that she hadn't answered his calls all day yet showed up at the gym. She apologized, explaining she was busy. He questioned why she paid for classes with Dong, insisting he could teach her for free. Sang-mi, annoyed, said the decision was made and she trusted Dong as a coach to guide her properly. Hyan, suspicious, asked if she liked Dong. Sang-mi snapped, telling him to stop talking nonsense and pushed past him to change. When Sang-mi emerged in her new workout clothes, heads turned. Dong complimented her, saying the outfit suited her and she looked cute. He outlined their session focusing on lower body exercises, starting with stretches. He guided her into the frog pose, instructing her to spread her legs, point her feet out, and lean back slightly to stretch her hip ligaments for better joint flexibility. Sang-mi followed, and Dong praised her flexibility, asking if she felt the stretch. Hyan, watching from a distance, fumed. He couldn't believe Sang-mi was in such a position so casually under Dong's guidance. His mind raced, wondering if she allowed Dong to get too close. The manager, noticing his distress, asked if Sang-mi was his friend. Hyan confirmed, admitting she'd paid for classes with Dong before he could stop her. The manager called him foolish for letting Dong take her as a client, saying it was too late to intervene. Hyan apologized, but she waved it off, stating the problem was his to fix. She warned that Dong was cunning and likely manipulating Sang-mi. Pointing out Sang-mi's leggings, the manager noted they showed no panty lines, suggesting she wore a thong. Hyan, shocked, listened as the manager explained that squatting in a thong could cause a good mood, implying Dong chose the exercise deliberately to provoke a reaction. She hinted they might escalate their interaction later, leaving Hyan reeling with concern and jealousy. The manager noticed Hyan's troubled expression, asking if he was worried. Hyan denied it, calling the idea ridiculous, but his tone lacked conviction. As he walked toward the locker room, he muttered to himself, dismissing the manager's claim that squatting in a thong could be stimulating. He thought she was exaggerating and decided to head to the warehouse to organize it, needing space to clear his head. Alone in the locker room, Hyan's thoughts churned. He questioned what made Dong so appealing and why he cared so much about Sang-mi's choices. His mind drifted to their shared past, recalling how he'd watched Sang-mi navigate her romantic life from a young age. A memory surfaced. They were watching TV together, Sang-mi tapping away on her phone. She suddenly showed him a picture of a girl in a revealing dress, asking if it would excite him. Hyan, flustered, asked why she was showing him. Sang-mi explained she wanted to surprise her boyfriend for their 100-day anniversary and sought his opinion on the outfit. Hyan, uncomfortable, brushed it off, saying he didn't know why she asked him. Reflecting now, he wondered if her casual attitude back then meant she was already experienced in matters of romance, fueling his unease about her current interactions. The manager's sudden arrival snapped him back to the present. Hyan assured her he was nearly done and didn't need help. Ignoring him, she began stretching, shedding some clothing to demonstrate a point. Hyan, alarmed, asked what she was doing. She explained she was proving that squats could indeed be stimulating for women, countering his earlier skepticism. She emphasized the effect, urging him to notice how clothing played a role. Hyan, embarrassed, begged her to stop, saying he understood. She refused, playfully insisting he take responsibility for sparking her enthusiasm. As Hyan stepped back, he stumbled and fell. The manager teased him for being nervous, referencing the night he saw her and Dong in the storeroom. She probed what he thought while watching, suggesting he might have wanted to take Dong's place. She claimed he had the potential to charm not just her but also gym clients, as she told him before, but he hadn't yet tapped into it. Offering to help him unlock that potential, she made a bold comment about testing his abilities first, leaving Hyan stunned and grappling with her provocative words. In the gym, Dong guided Sang-mi through her workout, urging her to breathe out as she opened her legs, emphasizing controlled breathing. He noted the muscles they were targeting were being stimulated, promising a thorough lower body session. Sang-mi focused, following his instructions as they trained. Meanwhile, in the locker room, Hyan and the manager began a workout session. As they stretched, the manager probed Hyan about Sang-mi, asking if his childhood friend was the reason for his guarded attitude. She questioned if he felt Sang-mi didn't see him as masculine when they spent time together. Hyan hesitated, denying the thought. The manager pressed further, asking why he'd reacted physically when he saw Sang-mi squatting, leaving him flustered and unable to respond. After their session, Hyan and the manager stepped outside. Hyan glanced around, wondering if Sang-mi's class had ended and where she'd gone, noticing Dong was also absent. His concern grew, unaware that Dong and Sang-mi were still training elsewhere. Dong, catching up with Sang-mi, asked where she'd been, explaining they'd been working on lower body exercises. He checked if anything had happened, sensing her distraction, but Sang-mi remained focused on the workout, brushing off his question. Hyan spotted Sang-mi and asked where she'd been. She hesitated, but Dong interjected, explaining they were working on lower body exercises and asked if something was wrong. Hyan, skeptical, pointed out that running typically worked the lower body and questioned what exercises they were doing. Dong, casually holding Sang-mi's arm, suggested they go running. Hyan countered, noting the dusty air and explaining that running was aerobic, implying it wasn't the focus. Dong dismissed him as old-fashioned, listing other ways to train the lower body and questioning why Hyan cared so much about another customer's routine. Hyan insisted he was looking out for his friend, who wanted to exercise seriously. Dong, smirking, asked if Hyan thought he wasn't teaching her well. The manager appeared, interrupting their tense exchange and urging them to get back to work. Noticing Sang-mi, she greeted her warmly, asking if she felt comfortable. Sang-mi thanked Coach Dong for his guidance. The manager, placing a hand on Dong's shoulder, praised his teaching skills and mentioned hearing that Sang-mi and Hyan were friends. Sang-mi, resting a hand on Hyan's arm, confirmed they'd been close since childhood. Hyan agreed, though his tone was lukewarm. The manager, delighted, proposed they all go for drinks later, suggesting a group dinner to enjoy each other's company. Sang-mi, intrigued, asked about dining together. That night, the four gathered at a restaurant, sharing drinks. The manager quickly finished a glass of beer, impressing Sang-mi, who remarked that she didn't expect someone with such a fit physique to drink so much. Hyan, feeling overlooked, asked what about him. Sang-mi teased that he was too thin and should eat and drink more. Dong chimed in, advising Sang-mi that eating only vegetables to lose weight could trick her body into starvation mode, and occasional indulgences weren't harmful. The manager, turning to Sang-mi, asked if there was truly nothing special between her and Hyan, finding it hard to believe a man and woman could share just friendship after knowing each other so long. She probed if they'd never felt attraction. Sang-mi firmly denied any romantic feelings, recounting a time she visited Hyan during his military service. She shared a story of drinking together and spending the night in a motel, emphasizing nothing happened. Dong laughed, calling it a pure friendship. The manager, unconvinced, playfully grabbed Hyan's hand, asking Sang-mi if it made her jealous. Sang-mi brushed it off, unbothered by the gesture. The manager, testing further, leaned closer to Hyan, holding his hand tightly. Sang-mi laughed, insisting it wouldn't faze her. Undeterred, the manager briefly pressed her cheek to Hyan's in a teasing gesture, leaving Sang-mi unfazed and the group chuckling at the playful challenge. After the manager's playful cheek kiss with Hyan, she teased Sang-mi, asking if she was jealous. Sang-mi, caught off guard, covered her mouth in surprise. Dong, growing tired of the manager's antics, suggested they stop joking and keep drinking, proposing they play the king's game instead. Hyan, unfamiliar with it, asked what it was, but Sang-mi eagerly agreed to play. In the first round, Sang-mi won and declared herself king, ordering numbers 1 and 3 to kiss. The manager, unfazed, noted it was another kiss, while Dong revealed he was number 3. They shared a quick peck, and Hyan, watching, thought in disbelief that the manager had just kissed him and now kissed Dong. He silently fumed, feeling the atmosphere was too wild. The manager, laughing, challenged Sang-mi to give her a tougher task next time. In the next round, the manager became king and ordered numbers 2 and 3 to touch each other. Hyan and Dong, revealed as the numbers, awkwardly complied, with Dong complimenting Hyan's muscle definition and Hyan noting Dong's impressive muscle volume. The girls giggled, finding the scene amusingly awkward. The manager won again, declaring she'd play seriously. She commanded number 1 to sit on number 3, move their waist in circles, touch each other, and soft work out for 5 minutes. Sang-mi was number 1 and Dong, grinning, announced he was number 3. The manager turned to Hyan, asking if he'd be jealous. Hyan insisted it was just a game and he had no special relationship with Sang-mi, denying any jealousy. The manager offered him an out, drink an entire jar of beer to cancel the challenge. Hyan eyed the jar, unsure he could manage it. Sang-mi, determined, told him not to drink and said she'd go through with the challenge. She sat on Dong, who playfully remarked he enjoyed drinking with her and suggested they go out more often. Hyan, overcome with jealousy, grabbed the jar and downed it in one go, shocking everyone. Moments later, he passed out. Hyan dreamed he was working out with Sang-mi, their movements synchronized. He awoke in his house, head pounding. His mother scolded him, saying a fitness trainer shouldn't get so drunk. Hyan, confused, asked how he got home. She shrugged, saying he must have returned while she was asleep. When he asked if she'd seen Sang-mi, she dismissed the question, urging him to eat breakfast. Hyan, too anxious to eat, rushed to Sang-mi's apartment. At Sang-mi's door, her mother greeted him and Hyan asked if Sang-mi was there. Her mother's face fell as she revealed Sang-mi hadn't come home since the previous day. Hearing this, Hyun's frustration surged, his mind racing with worry about where she could be and what might have happened after he blacked out. Hyun sat at home enjoying breakfast with his mother. He complimented her idea of adding rice cakes to the soup, asking where his father was. She explained his father was at work, noting that only Hyun, with his flexible coach hours, could be home midday. She urged him to start work early to impress his employers, emphasizing his youth and potential. Hyun nodded, but his thoughts drifted to the previous night, his memory a blur. A fragment surfaced after passing out at the bar. The manager had checked on him, asking if he was okay. Sang-mi, unfazed, assured her she'd take Hyun home later, suggesting they keep drinking. The manager teased Sang-mi, surprised by her bold side, while Sang-mi laughed, warning that looks could deceive before excusing herself to the bathroom. Dong, seizing the moment, told the manager he'd pursue Sang-mi that night and asked her to handle Hyun. The manager shrugged, letting him do as he pleased, while Dong boasted about breaking his diet to achieve his goal. Back in the present, Hyun shook his head, convincing himself Sang-mi wouldn't be with someone like Dong. His mother interrupted, asking what he was thinking and telling him to take out the trash after eating. As Hyun carried the trash outside, he wondered if the night's events were just a dream. A vivid sensation lingered. Someone had worked out with him while he was unconscious, too real to dismiss, though he couldn't place who it was. Spotting Sang-mi's mother approaching with 2 grocery bags, Hyun offered to help. She explained she stocked up due to bad weather, suggesting they make mung bean pancakes with his mother. Hyun grinned, excited at the idea. Sang-mi's mother asked if Sang-mi had called, and Hyun, surprised, asked if she still hadn't come home. She reassured him it wasn't the first time, but Hyun, concerned, promised to try calling her again. Later, Hyun, his mother, and Sang-mi's mother sat together, eating ramen. As his mother poured the noodles, another memory from the night flashed. A drunk Dong slurred to the manager that he'd take care of Sang-mi, but the manager, seeing his state, sent him home in a cab. She then found Hyan and Sang-mi, both drunk, slumped on the roadside. Grumbling, she carried them to Sang-mi's place. After confirming Sang-mi's address and settling her into bed, the manager asked an unresponsive Hyun if he lived upstairs. Exhausted, she placed him beside Sang-mi in the same bed, muttering she didn't care what happened next, though she briefly considered it a shame to leave them like that. Back at the table, Sang-mi's mother asked Hyun if he'd thought about marriage. Startled, he stammered that he'd only recently started working and needed to establish himself first. Hyun's mother chimed in, asking what he thought of Sang-mi, noting their family's closeness and saying she'd approve if Sang-mi agreed. Hyun, flustered, told her to stop talking nonsense. Just then, Sang-mi walked in, surprising everyone at the table. Sang-mi, entering the room, spotted Hyun and asked why he was there so early. Hyun's mother, surprised, pointed out that Sang-mi wasn't at her own home and stammered about her clothes. Sang-mi glanced down, realizing she wore little underneath, and bolted from the room in embarrassment. Later, Sang-mi's mother called after her, asking if she and Hyun had spent the night together. Sang-mi, flustered, denied knowing what she meant, insisting she was running late and hurried off. Her mother explained she couldn't wake her because she was asleep in Hyun's room, but Sang-mi brushed it off, rushing out. At the gym, the day unfolded casually with everyone focused on their workouts. Hyun, sporting a sharp new haircut, sat alone, his thoughts lingering on the vivid sensation of someone working out with him while he was unconscious, wondering if it was Sang-mi or just a dream. Approaching the manager, he hesitantly mentioned the previous night at the bar. She cut him off, firmly stating that what happened there stays there, complimenting his new hairstyle and noting he looked better. Moments later, the girl Dong had previously trained approached, ignoring him despite his smug thought that she couldn't forget him easily. She spoke to the manager, requesting to switch her paid class from Dong to Hyun. The manager approved, and Hyun, surprised, suggested they discuss it in the counseling room. The manager leaned in, whispering a warning that he'd face consequences if he didn't secure more class payments from her. In the counseling room, Hyun reviewed the girl's exercise routine, noting she targeted specific areas. He explained that if her goal wasn't muscle gain, she didn't need such intense workouts. The girl scooted closer, asking if he'd test her with the in-body machine. Hyun declined, saying a visual analysis was more accurate, and asked her to stand and raise her arms. He assessed her, praising her balanced muscles, lack of subcutaneous fat, and impressive figure, recommending basic exercises to maintain it. During their training session, Hyun guided her to breathe and focus on core strength, encouraging her effort. Dong, observing, grudgingly noted Hyun's progress, impressed by the skinny coach's improvement. After the session, the girl thanked Hyun warmly, and he invited her to return often, pleased with the outcome. As Hyun left the gym, his phone buzzed with a text from Sang-mi, asking if he was heading home and suggesting they meet near his workplace. Hyun's mind raced, wondering why she wanted to see him. Before he could respond, the girl from the session pulled up in a red car, offering him a ride home to thank him for his help. Hyun declined politely, but she insisted, and he relented, climbing into the car, his thoughts still tangled with Sang-mi's message. As the girl drove, she thanked Hyun, praising his coaching skills. Hyun downplayed it, saying her great physique made his job easy. Pleased, she expressed her desire to continue classes with him. Hyun, relieved, said he was glad his efforts paid off, jokingly adding it meant he wouldn't be fired. The girl, growing serious, asked for a favor, hoping he'd help. Hyun assured her he was there to serve his client, eager to assist. They arrived at her place, where she needed help hammering a nail. She admitted she'd never done it before, and Hyun chuckled, explaining it was a common task during his military service. As he worked, her cat suddenly lunged at him, causing him to stumble and fall onto her. They landed in an awkward position, and Hyun quickly apologized, checking if she was okay. The girl, grabbing his arm, apologized instead, noting a scratch on his face and asking how she could help. Playfully, she suggested he use his hammer for another task, implying something more. Hyun, caught off guard, said things were moving too fast. She teased if he was worried about being compared to Dong, but assured him she'd make him forget any comparisons. Despite his hesitation, they began a light workout session together, focusing on stretches. Meanwhile, Sang-mi tried calling Hyun, but he was too occupied with the girl to notice, his phone buzzing unanswered in his pocket. At the gym, the manager reviewed the logbook tracking class payments. Spotting Dong lying on the floor, she teased him, suggesting he couldn't rely on his usual charm anymore and should focus on coaching male clients instead. Dong, clearly unwell, snapped back, claiming she didn't care about the gym's potential losses since he, the best coach, wasn't feeling good. The manager, unfazed, agreed he was still the best, her tone light but dismissive. Meanwhile, Hyun and the girl wrapped up an intense workout session at her place, focusing on core and lower body exercises. Afterward, she drove him home in her red car. Hyun thanked her and she brushed it off, saying she was the grateful one before driving away. As Hyun climbed the stairs to his apartment, he reflected on how much he'd been using his lower body lately, feeling the strain of recent activities. Suddenly, Sang-mi appeared in front of him, her expression sharp, asking where he'd been. Hyun froze, caught off guard by her sudden presence and the weight of her question. Sang-mi grabbed Hyun by the neck, calling him a naughty boy and accusing him of leaving with a woman. Hyun, defensive, insisted she was just a client who gave him a ride home. He turned the question back on her, asking where she'd gone with Dong and why she returned so late, pointing out she'd dodged his earlier questions. Sang-mi, flustered, told him to forget it and suggested they talk later. Hyun pressed, demanding answers now. She stormed into his room, shutting the door behind her. Alone, Hyun's thoughts swirled, wondering if having feelings for Sang-mi while being close with another girl counted as betrayal. Later at the gym, the manager coached a male client, encouraging him through his final lift. His effort, spurred by her vibrant presence, impressed her, and she praised his stimulated muscles, suggesting they were firm. She pitched a paid training class, highlighting how proper exercise could transform his body. Flattered, the man agreed to consider it, but his wife shot him a fierce glare, snapping at him to rethink his decision or face consequences. The manager sighed, reflecting on how convincing clients was getting harder, wondering if her age was a factor. She scrolled through Instagram, searching for new coaches to bolster the team. Hyun arrived, exuding charm as he greeted the female clients with warm compliments, wishing them a great day. He began training a girl, instructing her to keep her waist straight and core firm to avoid injury. The manager, observing his newfound confidence, thought he finally looked like a true coach. She noted his good mood, asking if something exciting happened. Hyun, with a sly smile, hinted she'd see soon. Moments later, Song, the girl Hyun had helped at her apartment, entered. Hyun welcomed her warmly, assuring her she wouldn't regret choosing his classes and inviting her to the counseling room. Leaning toward the manager, he whispered that Song had decided to renew her training sessions. The manager, impressed, thought he was thriving. In the counseling room, Hyun presented the contract, ready for Song to sign. She locked the door, her tone shifting as she admitted regretting letting him leave her place the previous night. Hyan, startled, warned that acting this way at the gym could cause trouble. Song, undeterred, asked what would happen if she did, her eyes challenging him. They began a light workout session, focusing on stretches, the air thick with unspoken tension. At the gym, a girl approached Dong, complaining about stiff hip muscles and asking for his help. Dong, with a playful smirk, teased her about what position she used the previous night to cause the stiffness, then told her to wait while he fetched something to massage her with. He headed toward the warehouse, where Hyan and Song were wrapping up their workout session. But as he reached to open the door, the manager stopped him, explaining someone was signing a contract inside. After a short wait, Hyan and Song emerged from the counseling room. Hyan promised to do everything he could to support her training goals, and Song, pleased, vowed to follow his advice. They stepped out, Song casually holding his arm, drawing Dong's sharp stare. Song suggested they take a picture together, and Hyan agreed, asking her to pass him the phone afterward. He posted the photo on Instagram, unaware of the ripple it would cause. Later, Sang-mi scrolled through her phone and saw the post, her expression shifting to one of quiet jealousy as she processed the image of Hyan and Song together. Sang-mi walked through a building, scrolling on her phone when she saw Hyan's latest Instagram post, a photo with another gym member racking up 135 likes. She muttered in frustration, startled when a colleague, the chief, playfully slapped her back. The chief apologized, gushing over Sang-mi's physique and admitting her jealousy, asking if Sang-mi was mad. Sang-mi assured her she wasn't, and the chief, relieved, hugged her tightly, praising her attitude. Spotting the photo on Sang-mi's phone, the chief gasped, admiring the guy's impressive build and pressing Sang-mi about who he was. Sang-mi, flustered, said he was just a friend. The chief, feigning disappointment, teased Sang-mi for not introducing her to such a handsome guy, especially since she'd been single for a while. Sang-mi's thoughts raced, realizing the chief was genuinely interested in Hyan. The chief proposed arranging a dinner for the three of them, suggesting that very night. Sang-mi, caught off guard, agreed it wouldn't be hard to set up. That afternoon at the gym, Hyan coached a girl through her final weight lift, drawing eyes from others. He cheered her on, and she completed it successfully. Hyan thanked her for her effort, guiding her into stretches and instructing her to breathe out. Teasingly, he asked if he should really assist, chuckling as he helped her. After the session, he praised her work, mentioning a promotion on personal training services and encouraging her to sign up. She agreed enthusiastically. Later, the manager approached Hyan, commending his coaching skills and calling him teacher. Hyan humbly said he still had much to learn. She noted his boldness during the stretching session, and Hyan, grinning, said he was still far behind her. Playfully, he brought up the night she took him and Sang-mi home, suggesting she'd gotten close to him while he lay next to Sang-mi, afraid of waking her. The manager, confused, asked what he meant. Hyan teased that she knew it wasn't fair to act coy, but she insisted she didn't recall the details clearly and walked off, leaving him puzzled. Hyan laughed, thinking the manager loved to dodge questions, but then paused, a flicker of doubt crossing his mind. If it wasn't her that night, who was it? Frustrated, he shook his head, unable to piece together what really happened. Sang-mi texted Hyan, inviting him for a beer that evening. Hyan, intrigued, thought she must have something to say and agreed to meet, eager to clear the air. At a restaurant, the chief thanked Sang-mi for arranging the meetup, but Sang-mi tempered her expectations about Hyan, joking he only looked good in photos and offering to introduce her to another trainer. The chief, undeterred, said she'd judge for herself when she saw him, excusing herself to the bathroom. Hyan arrived, grumbling to himself about meeting near Sang-mi's company instead of closer to home. As the chief returned, she spotted him but tripped while approaching. Hyan swiftly caught her, steadying her as she thanked him. She introduced herself as Lee, and Hyan, surprised, asked who she was. They joined Sang-mi at the table, where Hyan chided her for not mentioning a third person, feeling underdressed in his casual clothes. The chief complimented his look, and Sang-mi teased that they were lucky he didn't show up in a tracksuit. The chief, flirting lightly, said a man's style depended on the woman dressing him, suggesting outfit ideas for Hyan. He laughed, thanking her while she expressed gratitude for his earlier save, saying it could have been dangerous without him. Hyan brushed it off, saying it was a natural reaction for a man. The trio drank heavily, the mood lightening. Hyan, feeling the alcohol, excused himself to the bathroom. In his absence, the chief leaned toward Sang-mi, asking if there was truly nothing between her and Hyan. Sang-mi confirmed there wasn't, and the chief whispered something in her ear, causing Sang-mi's eyes to widen in surprise. Hyan returned, sensing the shift, and jokingly accused them of talking behind his back. The chief denied it, claiming she was asking Sang-mi about food for a second round, inviting him to join. Hyun agreed enthusiastically. Later, outside and thoroughly drunk, Sang-mi announced she'd leave first to meet an acquaintance nearby. Hyun asked who, and she revealed it was Dong-jun, asking if it was okay to see him briefly. Hyun, irritated, questioned why she needed to meet Dong, his frustration spilling out. Sang-mi, defensive, pointed out he hadn't been honest about his own whereabouts before, so she didn't owe him an explanation. Hyun retorted that she'd been the first to hide the truth, and Sang-mi, annoyed, accused him of acting childish. She told him to have fun with the chief, promising to join them later. The chief, taking Hyun's hand, said they'd head in first and send Sang-mi their location. As they walked alone, she asked if he liked Sang-mi. Hyun, caught off guard, stammered that he didn't, not really. The chief, her tone warm, said a man like him deserved to be loved, admitting she'd been waiting for a moment alone with him. They stopped in front of a motel, the air heavy with her implication, leaving Hyun to grapple with the unexpected turn. Inside the motel, while the chief bathed, Hyun sat on the bed, texting Sang-mi. He asked where she was and what she was doing, growing frustrated as she didn't respond. His messages piled up, his worry mounting that something might happen to her. Overwhelmed, he left the motel without telling the chief, his mind racing. Hyun ran through the streets, wondering where Sang-mi and Dong had gone, imagining them secretly working out together. His thoughts spiraled. Why did he care so much when she'd only mentioned eating with the team leader? Confused by his own emotions, he couldn't make sense of his jealousy. Heading home, he called out for Sang-mi, his voice loud enough to risk waking her parents. Sang-mi opened the door, scolding him for shouting and asking what he'd do if her parents woke up. Hyun insisted they talk immediately, brushing off her suggestion to wait until tomorrow. They went to her room, where he demanded they be honest and get to the point, urging her to share if something was bothering her. Sang-mi agreed, telling him to ask his question first. Hyun confronted her about meeting Dong that night, questioning why she'd see him just to discuss her diet after drinking. He pressed what was going on between them and why they met so often. Sang-mi, caught off guard, stammered that there was nothing between them, hesitating over her words. Hyun, catching her use of us, asked why she didn't clarify there was no us with Dong. Flipping the conversation, Sang-mi asked what he did with her chief, Jong. Hyun said they only had a drink, privately recalling they went to a motel but keeping it from her. Sang-mi brought up the female gym member who drove him home, asking about their relationship. Hyun insisted it was just a coach-client dynamic, though he thought to himself about their workout, convincing himself it meant nothing. Sang-mi pointed out the member brought him home, implying more. Hyun, regretting his line of questioning, suspected Sang-mi and Dong might be close without officially dating, his doubts festering. Gathering his courage, Hyun asked Sang-mi directly if she'd been working out with Dong, his voice heavy with curiosity and fear of her answer. Sang-mi's eyes widened, shocked by the blunt question, leaving the room tense with anticipation. Hyun pressed Sang-mi, demanding to know if she'd been working out with Dong. She firmly denied it, insisting there was no reason she would, and asked if he thought she was lying. Hyun, unconvinced, questioned why her heart was racing as he held her wrist. Sang-mi, flustered, said it was only because he was gripping her, nothing more. He reminded her that she'd been unbothered during their last massage, pointing out her pounding heart now over just holding hands. Hyun began massaging her wrist, recalling how she'd claimed not to care last time, and asked if she'd felt excited then. Sang-mi, annoyed, reiterated that nothing happened between them and pushed him away, landing on the bed. Hyun, undeterred, leaned closer, saying he'd check for himself if she was telling the truth. Sang-mi demanded he let go, but he teased that she'd said she didn't mind, insisting he was only verifying her words. She asked if the thought of her with Dong made him jealous, probing why he'd feel that way if they were just friends. Hyun, caught off guard, asked if she had a habit of getting close with friends. Hyun, thinking back, accused her of working out with him that night in her bedroom while he was asleep. Sang-mi, outraged, called his claims nonsense, denying it vehemently. She challenged his behavior, asking what was wrong with him tonight. The tension hung heavy as Hyun, his voice softer, asked if she wanted to take things further with him, leaving the question lingering in the charged air of her room. Sang-mi, caught off guard by Hyun's bold question, admitted she wanted to be close but accused him of being drunk to say such a thing. Hyun denied it, suggesting she'd prompted it because she felt the same. Sang-mi insisted that wasn't what she meant, reminding him they were friends and crossing that line would make facing each other later impossible. Hyun brushed off her concern, joking she could just close her eyes. He pressed again about the night he felt someone was working out with him, convinced it was her acting. Sang-mi swore she never did such a thing, growing agitated. Hyun, skeptical, teased if he should investigate further, inching closer. She demanded he let go, but he refused, insisting on the truth. Sang-mi, flustered, maintained her denial, her voice wavering. Hyun, unrelenting, said it didn't matter anymore, they should focus on the present moment. Sang-mi called out his name, urging him to stop as he playfully challenged her to reciprocate if she felt wronged, referencing her past casual attitude during their massage. She denied wanting that, reiterating it wasn't her that night. Hyan, undeterred, asked if she wanted to work out now, his tone teasing yet intense. Sang-mi, exasperated, questioned what he was doing as he jokingly suggested she adjust her position for a better stretch, aiming to keep the mood light but direct. The room buzzed with tension, their words and actions dancing on the edge of their long-standing friendship. They started working out together. After a while, Sang-mi's mom knocked on the door. They both became afraid. As Hyan and Sang-mi engaged in a playful workout in her room, stretching and teasing each other, Sang-mi's mother called from outside, asking if she was sleeping and why her door was locked again. She requested Sang-mi turn off the light. Sang-mi, slightly flustered, shouted back that she'd do it, her voice betraying a hint of distraction. Her mother, muttering about Sang-mi having her head in the clouds, shuffled away. Hyan and Sang-mi exchanged a quick glance, stifling laughter, and resumed their workout. After their workout, Sang-mi sat up, her voice tinged with panic as she wondered what they'd done. Hyan, relaxed, suggested they stay close a bit longer, teasing that she enjoyed it too. Sang-mi, pushing him away, told him to leave before her parents noticed. Hyan slipped out of her room, stepping outside to find morning light already breaking. Later at the gym, Hyan's thoughts swirled with concern for Sang-mi. He wondered if she was okay, frustrated that she'd initiated their closeness but seemed upset when he reciprocated. Lost in thought, he didn't notice the manager approach until she playfully slapped his back, scolding him for spacing out during work hours. She told him to help clean the warehouse like last time, hinting they hadn't been close since their drunken night after the group dinner. Hyan, confused, asked what she meant by the other night. The manager teased him for pretending to forget, claiming they'd been working out in his bedroom where he'd asked her to shed her clothes. She reassured him Sang-mi was too drunk to notice and completely passed out. Hyan's mind reeled, realizing Sang-mi wasn't the one who'd initiated things that night, it was the manager. Stunned, he grappled with the revelation, his assumptions about Sang-mi crumbling. Hyan, shocked, asked the manager if she was really the one with him that night. She teased if he genuinely didn't remember or was just pretending, her eyes glinting mischievously. Her mind drifted to that night when she'd left Sang-mi and Hyan on the same bed, muttering it'd be a waste to leave them like that. Seeing Sang-mi fast asleep, she'd started a workout with an unconscious Hyan, marveling at his physique compared to Dong's softer frame, likening it to a sweet treat. Hyan stood stunned as she recounted the story, his face a mix of disbelief and embarrassment. The manager, sensing his turmoil, told him not to be too hard on himself for forgetting, assuring him there'd be plenty of chances to make new memories if he worked hard. Her tone was light but suggestive, leaving him reeling. Later, at the gym, Hyan coached Song, instructing her to raise her upper body during their session. His thoughts wandered to Sang-mi, guilt creeping in. He'd assumed it was her that night, accusing her of being too close, only to realize he'd been the one crossing lines with the manager. He wondered if Sang-mi's willingness to get close during their workout meant she'd wanted it too, his mind tangled in confusion. After training, Hyan thanked Song for her hard work and she playfully called him teacher, expressing her gratitude. Suddenly, she grabbed his arm, asking if he could visit her house that night for a massage. Hyan, caught off guard, said he never ignored a client's needs but had other plans. Song, disappointed but understanding, let it go. Outside, walking along the road, Hyan tried calling Sang-mi, growing anxious as she didn't answer his calls or texts. He wondered if she was busy or upset, his worry mounting. Suddenly, he spotted her approaching. Calling her name, he asked for a moment to talk. They stood face to face, eyes locked, the air heavy with unspoken questions and emotions. Sang-mi spotted Hyan and immediately turned away, quickening her pace. Hyan, desperate, called out for her to stop and talk, chasing after her. Sang-mi broke into a run, darting to her room and locking the door behind her. Later, lying on his bed, Hyan's thoughts churned. He wondered why she ran from him, frustrated that things had soured. If she didn't want to work out, he thought she should have just said so. The next day at the gym, activity buzzed as members worked out. Hyan approached the manager, noting the increase in male members. She sighed, pointing out they weren't spending money or seeking coaching, either helping themselves or just ogling the female clients. She mused about hiring a female trainer to shake things up. Then she asked for Hyan's help with something, showing him photos of potential candidates. The first was a college championship winner who could lift over 500 pounds. The second, Inun Pity, was a recent model who might not have time to work. Accidentally, she opened a photo of herself, prompting Hyan to point out it was her. The manager laughed, revealing she'd modeled in her youth, even appearing in music videos, and mentioned a younger friend, a popular figure in Gangnam. She asked Hyan which candidate seemed best for the trainer role. Before he could answer, Sang-mi entered, and the manager, noticing Hyun's distraction, sighed about blind devotion. Sang-mi greeted Dong but ignored Hyun's question about why she was there. She told Dong she'd prepare for their training session, and he encouraged her to take her time, sensing a strange tension between her and Hyun. Dong's thoughts turned sly, wondering if something happened between them, his gaze lingering on Sang-mi with a calculating glint, contemplating if she needed comforting. Sang-mi emerged from the locker room in tight gym pants, catching Dong's attention. He complimented her bold outfit, suggesting a bolder coaching approach with a playful grin. Guiding her with a hand on her back, he proposed focusing on back exercises. Hyun, watching from a distance, felt a pang of jealousy as they began training. Dong instructed Sang-mi to keep her back straight, warning she'd hurt herself otherwise. He urged her to arch her waist slightly, praising her form and teasing that she couldn't resist his coaching skills. He told her to look straight ahead, not elsewhere. Sang-mi, catching Hyun's jealous glare, paused briefly, asking for a moment, but did nothing to address his obvious discomfort. Dong, amused, noted she was staying still, making his job easier, and encouraged her to stay focused as they continued. Hyun's anger simmered as he watched. After the session, Sang-mi thanked Dong, who praised her effort and reminded her to control her diet, promising to stay in touch about it. Sang-mi nodded, heading off. Later, at a coffee bar, the manager waited for someone, her eyes scanning the room. A striking blonde woman entered, drawing stares from patrons. She greeted the manager warmly, calling her Uni and noting it had been a while. The manager, eyeing her figure, remarked on her appearance, surprised she hadn't had surgery. The blonde laughed, teasing that the manager's figure was more impressive, though older. The manager, mock offended, asked if she was joking. The blonde apologized for her tardiness, blaming Gangnam's traffic, and the manager chided her for not leaving earlier. The blonde, still apologetic, asked why the manager had reached out after years. The manager got to the point, offering her a job at the gym. The blonde, surprised by the sudden proposal, listened as the manager outlined a generous offer. Before she could finish, the blonde agreed, trusting the manager's judgment since it was her Uni making the deal. She mentioned a spa reservation, clarifying she was only repaying a past debt, and left after a quick farewell, leaving the manager to process their brief but loaded exchange. At the office canteen, Sang-mi sat alone, her thoughts heavy with guilt for avoiding Hyun. She wondered how to face him after their recent closeness. Her phone buzzed with a text she assumed was from Hyun, but it was Dong, inviting her to share a sirloin steak after training at a renowned Seoul restaurant. Confused about what a sirloin steak was, she sighed, realizing she couldn't keep dodging Hyun and needed to address their situation. Her boss approached, noticing Sang-mi's worried expression, and asked what was on her mind. Sang-mi inquired if she'd made it home safely that night. Her boss, teasing, asked why she was only asking now, calling her considerate but cranky. Sang-mi, puzzled, asked what she meant. Her boss, flustered, said she should have brought it up sooner, revealing that Hyun had left a girl alone in a motel, shocking Sang-mi. Later, walking along the road, Sang-mi pieced together that Hyun hadn't worked out with her boss that night. Her anger flared, thinking Hyun had taken her boss to a motel for workout, then did the same with her right after. Fuming, she called him a deceitful jerk, vowing to confront him. At the gym, Dong greeted Sang-mi warmly, but she ignored him, still upset. Approaching him, she thanked him for her improved physique, noting his own growing muscles. Dong, pleased, said it was due to his recent focus on building strength and asked if she'd seen his text about dinner, emphasizing that great food was key to a great body. Sang-mi agreed, intrigued by the plan. Hyun, watching, seethed, questioning her behavior and feeling childish for his jealousy. Dong told Sang-mi to change for training, promising to discuss dinner details later, and shot Hyun a smug smile as their eyes met. Suddenly, a crowd gathered in the gym, drawing Hyun and Dong's attention. They approached and saw a stunning blonde woman, the new trainer, Rhea. Both men blushed at her beauty. The manager introduced Rhea to the team, pointing out Hyun on the left and Dong on the right, announcing she'd start working with them. Hyun and Dong, flustered, stammered their excitement to collaborate with her. Sang-mi, now in gym clothes, called out to Dong, only to see him chatting with Rhea. A flicker of jealousy crossed her face as she watched the interaction unfold. At the gym, Rhea surveyed the space, impressed by the brand new equipment and excellent ventilation, admitting it exceeded her expectations. Her gaze briefly met Hyun's, sparking a fleeting connection. Spotting a male member lifting weights incorrectly, she stepped in, advising him to engage his back more to avoid injury. Guiding his posture with a gentle touch, she instructed him to pull the bar with his upper body, breathe slowly, and keep his back straight. Her hands steadied him, emphasizing proper strength distribution. causing the man to flush under her attention. Hyan, observing, remarked to the manager that Rhea took her role seriously. The manager agreed, pleased that hiring her was proving worthwhile. Later, Rhea handed the manager a list of people eager to join personal training, surprising her with the high number. Grateful, the manager promised to treat Rhea to a meal and announced a party to celebrate her arrival, calling the trainers to stay for drinks and snacks. During the impromptu gym party, everyone gathered, enjoying the cozy atmosphere. Rhea playfully reminded the manager about the promised meal, and the manager laughed, saying the gym's warm setting was better. Dong and Hyan agreed, preferring the casual vibe. Hyan, turning to Dong, asked about his supposed dinner with a member that night. Dong brushed it off, saying managing members was important but couldn't compare to dining with coworkers. His tone smooth but evasive. Hyan, unconvinced, thought Dong was dodging, his attention shifting to Rhea's striking beauty. He wondered if all Gangnam trainers were as captivating, then noticed her leggings revealed no undergarment lines, startling him. Rhea, catching his stare, asked if something was on her face. Before Hyan could respond, Dong jumped in, saying beauty was painted all over her face, prompting laughter from everyone. As the party wound down, the group exchanged goodbyes, wishing each other a safe trip home. Outside, Dong pulled up in his car, offering Rhea a ride, assuring her distance wasn't an issue. Hyan, watching, sighed at Dong's predictable charm. The manager, noticing Hyan's reaction, told him not to mind others' actions, suggesting it didn't matter what they did. Hyan nodded, agreeing. She then admitted feeling tired and slightly tipsy, asking if he'd escort her home safely, her tone soft and inviting, leaving Hyan to consider her request under the night's quiet hum. Dong, leaning out of his car, called to Rhea, assuring her they were now teammates and he wasn't strange, urging her to hop in. Rhea, unfazed, declined politely and pressed her key fob, lighting up a sleek sports car nearby. She slid in and drove off, leaving Dong stunned by her independence. Meanwhile, Hyan followed the manager to her apartment, his eyes widening at the sight of it. She teased if he was surprised, doubting this was his first time at a single woman's place. Hyan clarified it was cleaner than he'd expected, laughing nervously. The manager, amused, said he still didn't know her well despite their time together, boasting about her tidy nature and dislike for mess. Noticing he hadn't cleaned up after their gym gathering, she told him to shower. In the shower, Hyan's thoughts raced. The manager's home demeanor contrasted sharply with her work persona, leaving him unsure how to proceed. He grumbled to himself, blaming her for putting him in this position. Suddenly, her voice cut through from behind, startling him as she remarked on his chattiness while showering. Hyan, flustered, called her boss, but she corrected him, insisting he call her Nuna when they were alone. He stammered, repeating boss, and she reiterated, her tone playful yet firm. They began a light workout session, focusing on stretches, the atmosphere charged with their casual banter and her assertive presence. As Hyan and the manager continued their workout, she asked how he was enjoying it, her voice teasing. Hyan, caught up in the moment, replied enthusiastically, calling her Nuna as they transitioned into deeper stretches, their session growing more vigorous. Afterward, Hyan left her apartment, walking along the road, his legs wobbly from overexertion. He muttered about overdoing it, checking his phone to find 3 missed calls from his mother. As he wondered why she'd called so late, his phone buzzed again. His mother, exasperated, demanded to know why he was only answering now and what he'd been doing. Hyan, dodging the truth, said he was working, asking why she was so curious. She explained she couldn't recall if she'd turned off the gas valve and asked him to check, stressing safety. Hyan, annoyed, teased her for bothering him over something she could have texted, then asked where she was. She revealed she was heading night fishing with his father and Sang-mi's parents, not returning until the next afternoon, leaving him to handle his own breakfast. Hyan wished her a safe trip, but as the call ended, a thought struck him. If both sets of parents were gone, Sang-mi was likely home alone. His pulse quickened at the realization. He hurried home and quietly entered Sang-mi's room, finding her asleep. Softly, he asked if she was sleeping, his voice barely above a whisper, unsure whether to wake her or let her rest. Hyan, standing over a sleeping Sang-mi, softly asked if she wasn't worried about catching a cold. Noting her vulnerable state, she didn't stir, lost in deep sleep. Without thinking, his hand brushed against her, and he froze, his mind racing. He scolded himself, realizing how close he'd come to crossing a line. Even though they'd worked out before, this felt different. She was asleep, unaware. He questioned if the alcohol from earlier was clouding his judgment. His gaze lingering on her, finding her strikingly beautiful. The urge to kiss her surged, his feelings for her undeniable and real. As he leaned closer, Sang-mi's eyes snapped open, and she shouted, demanding to know what he was trying to do. Hyan, stammering, said he only came to tell her their parents had gone on a trip together. Sang-mi, unconvinced, asked how that justified his actions. His intense stare unsettled her, and she questioned why he was looking at her like that. Hyan, overwhelmed, admitted he couldn't hold back anymore and moved to pull her into a playful workout, his emotions spilling over. He confessed that since their night together, he hadn't stopped thinking about her, urging her to admit she felt the same. Sang-mi, pushing him away, hit his chest, accusing him of hypocrisy. If he wanted honesty, why had he lied? She confronted him about going to a motel with her chief before being close with her, reminding him of his own call for honesty that night. Hyan tried to explain, saying he didn't mean to deceive her, but Sang-mi, fed up, declared she was tired of his lies and didn't want to see him, ordering him to leave. Hyan pleaded for her to listen, but Sang-mi shoved him out and locked the door, leaving him in the hallway. The next day, walking to the gym, Hyan's thoughts churned with regret. Sang-mi was clearly upset, and he worried if their friendship could recover. Determined to clear up the misunderstanding, he searched for a way to make things right. A white car suddenly pulled up beside him, stopping abruptly. Hyan's eyes widened as Rhea, the new trainer, leaned out, motioning for him to get in, her expression unreadable. Inside Rhea's sleek sports car, Hyan marveled at its luxury, thinking she must earn a fortune. He couldn't stop glancing at her, captivated. Rhea broke the silence, asking who the top seller was at their gym. Hyan replied that Dong had the highest sales, praising his handsomeness, great physique, and popularity among female members. Rhea laughed, calling Dong a clown, surprising Hyan. He wondered how to act at the gym if Dong's methods were dismissed by someone like Rhea, questioning his own approach. As they arrived, heads turned toward Rhea's striking presence. The manager, spotting them together, teased if something suspicious had happened. Rhea clarified she just picked Hyan up on her way, and the manager chuckled, saying Hyan wasn't the type to easily chat with someone like Rhea, her tone playful. That afternoon, at Sang-mi's office, her chief suddenly grabbed her from behind, startling her. Sang-mi fell to the floor, scolding the chief for scaring her. The chief apologized, noting Sang-mi didn't look at herself and asking if something was wrong. Sang-mi insisted she was fine, but the chief pressed, sensing her unease. She guessed it was about Hyan and the night at the motel, suggesting Sang-mi's feelings for him weren't just friendly. Sang-mi, flustered, denied it. The chief reassured her nothing happened that night, venting her own frustration that Hyan had left while she was showering, leaving Sang-mi stunned to learn he'd run off. Later, at her desk, Sang-mi reflected. Realizing Hyan hadn't been close with her chief before their own encounter, she felt a pang of guilt for kicking him out of her room. Whispering an apology to herself, she debated calling him. Dialing his number, she was startled when a woman answered, saying Hyan was in the shower. Sang-mi, gripping the phone, asked if it was Hyan's, her heart sinking at the implication. Sang-mi sat alone in a restaurant, nursing a drink, her thoughts consumed by Hyan and the possibility of other women vying for his attention, jealousy gnawing at her. Hyan walked in, relieved to find her alone, but she fixed him with a sharp look, asking why he was staring and where he'd left the other girl to be there so early. Hyan, caught off guard, asked what she meant by another girl. Sang-mi revealed she'd called him earlier, but a woman answered his phone. Hyan, piecing it together, explained what happened an hour prior. He'd left his phone on the manager's desk while heading to the warehouse. When Sang-mi called, the manager, spotting the caller ID, decided to play a prank. She answered, telling Sang-mi Hyan was in the shower, intending to tease her. Sang-mi hung up before the manager could clarify it was a joke. Returning, Hyan was alarmed when the manager admitted her prank had likely caused a misunderstanding. Back in the present, Hyun told Sang-mi the manager had confessed to answering the call and pretending to be another woman. But Sang-mi had disconnected too quickly to hear the truth. Sang-mi, frustrated, questioned why anyone would pull such a prank. Hyun suggested the manager felt comfortable because it was Sang-mi, given their shared drinks before. Sang-mi pressed what he'd do if it caused a real misunderstanding. Hyun, hesitant, said there wasn't one, as the manager saw them as just friends. Sang-mi's eyes narrowed, asking if that's how he saw them too. Hyun's thoughts raced, torn between admitting his feelings for Sang-mi and the difficulty of saying it aloud. Instead, he deflected, suggesting they just drink. They downed several rounds, the tension easing with alcohol. Sang-mi, wobbly, stood to buy more but stumbled, and Hyun caught her, declaring she'd had enough. He hoisted her onto his back, carrying her home, grumbling to himself that she'd gotten drunk again, leaving him to handle it. He chided them both for needing to drink more moderately. At her place, he gently laid her on her bed, his gaze lingering. He admitted to himself he definitely liked Sang-mi, regretting not denying they were just friends when she asked. He wondered what he was afraid of, his heart heavy with unspoken words. Suddenly, Sang-mi's eyes fluttered open, catching him staring. Hyun quickly said he hadn't done anything this time, defensive. Before he could move, she reached out, grabbing him, her grip firm and unexpected, pulling him into the moment. In Sang-mi's room, she and Hyun began a workout, their movements charged with tension. After a moment, Hyun paused, catching his breath. Sang-mi, misreading his hesitation, asked why he didn't want to continue with her. Hyun quickly reassured her that he did, his voice earnest. They resumed, but Sang-mi soon stopped, pressing him to define their relationship. She insisted she wouldn't continue until he answered. Hyun, caught off guard, turned the question back on her, asking what she thought their relationship was. Both fell silent, neither able to articulate an answer, their feelings tangled in uncertainty. At the gym, Rhea worked out, her presence drawing every eye in the room. A male member, distracted by her, stumbled and fell. The manager, noticing, teased Rhea about her captivating performance and offered to check her form. Rhea, catching her breath, welcomed the feedback. Later, Rhea headed to the warehouse to change. Inside, she spotted Dong training a female customer, their session intense. Rhea, unfazed, grabbed a fresh set of clothes and left without a glance. Dong, bewildered, wondered what her problem was, questioning if she was out of her mind. The customer, brushing off Rhea's exit, urged Dong to continue their workout, calling him Coach Dong-soon with a playful tone. Dong, hesitating only briefly, agreed to resume, refocusing on the task. Outside, Rhea's cheeks flushed, her composure shaken as she walked away, the encounter lingering in her mind. After their workout session, Hyun turned to Sang-mi, his voice hesitant, asking what she wanted to do about their situation. Sang-mi, caught off guard, echoed his question, unsure how to respond. Hyun's thoughts churned, wishing he could muster the courage to ask if she wanted to date, but he held back, doubt clouding his resolve. Shaking his head, he muttered to forget it, letting the moment slip away. Later, as Hyun left Sang-mi's place, her mother noticed him slipping out. She thought to herself that Hyun had been coming over more frequently lately, her curiosity piqued by his regular visits. At the gym, amid the clatter of weights, Hyun arranged dumbbells, his mind fixated on Sang-mi. He berated himself for not asking her to date, cursing his cowardice and wondering what held him back. Lost in thought, he jolted when the manager slapped his back, surprising him. She asked what he was muttering about, then paused, noticing something. Leaning in, she touched his chest, commenting it didn't smell odd. Hyun, flustered, asked what she was doing, defending his hygiene and love for his usual tracksuits, insisting they suited him. The manager laughed, pointing to Dong's stylish outfit as an example of someone who cared about appearance. She challenged Hyun's plain style, explaining that gym members, especially women, wore trendy outfits to attract attention and preferred coaches who matched their fashion sense. She questioned if he'd train with someone like himself, lacking style, if he were in their shoes. Noting his improved sales, she suggested investing in new clothes. Hyun agreed to buy some after work, but when he mentioned going alone, the manager hesitated, doubting his judgment. Rhea walked in, greeting them brightly, and Hyun returned the hello, still flustered. The manager seized the moment, asking Rhea to accompany Hyun shopping. Later, at the store, Hyun apologized for dragging Rhea along, feeling guilty. She brushed it off, saying it was the manager's request and she was free anyway, adding that she loved shopping. Hyun tried on various outfits, and Rhea's eyes lit up at one that stood out, guiding his choices. After shopping, Hyun thanked her sincerely, grateful for the stylish clothes, though he silently noted his now empty wallet. Rhea smiled, saying it had been a while since she'd shopped with a man and found it fun. Hyun's thoughts raced, wondering if she saw him as a man. Emboldened, he asked if she'd like to grab a meal as thanks for her help. Rhea declined, and Hyun's heart sank, thinking he'd misread her again. But she quickly added that she'd prefer drinks instead, catching him off guard. Hyun, surprised, confirmed she meant alcohol, his mind buzzing with the unexpected turn. Hyun and Rhea sat at a bar, drinks in hand, the atmosphere relaxed. Rhea remarked that many gym-goers used performance-enhancing substances to boost their physiques, surprising Hyun with the extent of it. She said she wanted to drink with him because he was natural, his body showing honest effort. Hyun wondered if steroids could make him bulkier, but Rhea dismissed the idea, saying artificial gains lacked meaning and jokingly warned he'd lose his strength's true potential. When he questioned her, she laughed, admitting it was a tease, calling him naive but endearing. Hyun, warming to her, thought Rhea was surprisingly easygoing, far from the strict, cold person he'd first imagined. He told her she was different from his initial impression, not bad, but unexpected. He admired how she cared for herself yet devoured food heartily and how she'd helped him shop without complaint, showing genuine kindness. He thanked her again and Rhea waved it off, saying she'd enjoyed herself too. They clinked glasses, diving deeper into their drinks. Meanwhile, outside a shop, Sang-mi stood, exhausted, longing to go home. Her male boss suddenly grabbed her shoulder, startling her. She protested, sweaty and uncomfortable, but he brushed it off, urging her to join him and others for a second round of drinks to cool off. Sang-mi, already tipsy, declined, asking him not to touch her. He grew defensive, claiming he saw her like a younger sister and was only cheering her up, warning her not to misinterpret his actions as harassment. Just then, the chief appeared, grabbing the boss and suggesting a second round, diverting his attention. The boss agreed enthusiastically, asking what delicacies she craved, and they left. The chief glanced back, winking at Sang-mi, who sighed, relieved but weary of navigating workplace dynamics. Walking along the road, Sang-mi suddenly spotted Hyun and Rhea together. Rhea, feeling guilty for letting Hyun pay the bar bill, insisted on treating him to another round at a nearby place. Hyun, hesitating, wondered if it was a sign of interest, his pulse quickening. He agreed, but as they approached the bar, his eyes locked onto Sang-mi, shock flickering across his face. Rhea, noticing his reaction, asked who she was, her curiosity piqued by the sudden tension. Sang-mi's voice cut through the night, demanding to know who Rhea was. Rhea, unfazed, assumed Sang-mi was Hyun's girlfriend, complimenting her beauty and introducing herself as his coworker. Sang-mi, hiccuping from too much drink, challenged if it was appropriate for coworkers to share drinks alone at night. Hyun, embarrassed, covered her mouth, asking what was wrong with her. Rhea brushed it off, saying it was just the alcohol talking. Hyun apologized to Rhea, explaining he couldn't continue their night out as he needed to get Sang-mi home, promising a second round another time. He offered to treat Rhea to a meal instead, bidding her goodbye. Rhea nodded, understanding, and they parted ways. Hyun carried Sang-mi on his back, her body limp from passing out. He muttered about her inability to drink moderately, calling her a dumbass. Sang-mi, stirring, slurred about the joys and sorrows of an office worker's life. Hyun, clueless about her job, teased that she should train her glutes, joking their elasticity was fading. Sang-mi, annoyed, tightened her arms around his neck, nearly choking him until he admitted he was kidding. As they walked, Sang-mi expressed disappointment, assuming Hyun was interested in Rhea. He clarified they were just co-workers, praising Rhea's stylish look. Sang-mi scoffed, saying Rhea's style was common in Gangnam and hinting she'd had surgery. Hyun asked why she was so critical after barely meeting her, suggesting she might be jealous. Sang-mi denied it vehemently, insisting she had no reason to be. Hyun, unconvinced, recalled a past moment when Sang-mi burst into his room, catching him watching a workout video. She'd accused him of watching inappropriate content, comparing herself to the woman on screen, claiming her figure was better. Hyun had teased he preferred Kavya women, sparking her indignation before she stormed out, slamming the door. Back in the present, Hyun thought Sang-mi's jealousy wasn't new, remembering how she'd even been envious of video actresses. At her place, he told her not to make a fuss and to sleep off the alcohol. As he turned to leave, Sang-mi called out, thanking him for bringing her home. Hyun, surprised by her rare gratitude, wished her a good night. She hesitated, then asked him to stay for a moment, her voice soft but inviting, leaving him paused at the threshold. As Hyun approached Sang-mi, her mother emerged, scolding her for reeking of alcohol and thanking Hyun for bringing her home safely. She urged him to rest, assuming he was tired. Hyun nodded, wished her a good night, and left, while Sang-mi's mother gently pushed her daughter into her room. The next day at the gym, a group of female members swarmed Hyun, noticing his new stylish outfit. They complimented his fresh look, saying he should dress like this more often, with one tapping his arm admiringly. Another boldly asked if he had a girlfriend, and Hyun, admitting he was single, grinned as they marveled at his transformation. A member mentioned she hadn't used her orientation session yet, requesting him as her personal trainer, while others chimed in, eager to book him too. Nearby, Rhea coached a male client, instructing him to engage his core by pushing his midsection muscles outward to form a stable base, not by sucking in his abs. Noticing the crowd around Hyun, she smiled, amused. The manager, watching, thought Hyun's wardrobe upgrade had given him a significant boost, predicting a surge in his sales and wondering how to reward him. Dong, however, scoffed inwardly, thinking Hyun was only attracting less desirable clients, his jealousy evident. The manager called Dong over, assigning him a task. He, assuming it was for something private, suggested the warehouse, but she clarified he was to distribute flyers on the street. Dong, incredulous, questioned if she was serious, but with no choice, he headed out, grumbling that his declining sales had led to this humiliation. On the street, he handed out flyers, but people ignored him. One man took a flyer, only to throw it away after a glance, infuriating Dong, who felt disrespected. Spotting Sang-mi and her mother approaching with grocery bags, Dong called out, calling her his dear student. Sang-mi, surprised, asked what he was doing there, while her mother questioned why she'd bought so much food, mentioning she wanted to share some with Hyun. Dong explained he was conducting market research for the gym's promotion, sidestepping the flyer task. Noticing Sang-mi's mother, he flattered her, jokingly asking if she was Sang-mi's sister. She laughed, denying it, and Sang-mi thought to herself that she hadn't seen her mother smile like that in a while. Dong continued charming, insisting he'd never guessed she was Sang-mi's mom, and offered her a flyer, sweetening the deal with 2 free personal training sessions if she joined the gym. Sang-mi's mother, amused, called him a talented salesman, accepting the flyer. Meanwhile, Hyun strutted through the gym hallway, humming confidently. The manager suddenly grabbed his hand, pulling him into the staff room and shushing him. Hyun, startled, called her boss, but she reminded him to call her Nuna when alone. They began a light workout session, their banter filling the small space with a familiar ease. In the staff room, the manager teased Hyun, saying she couldn't stand seeing him swarmed by so many women earlier. Her voice turned playful, insisting he now had to take responsibility for the attention he'd drawn. Hyun, caught off guard, felt the air shift as their workout continued, their movements light but charged. Meanwhile, Rhea coached a male client through an exercise, guiding his form with precision. Her focus wavered as she wondered where Hyun was, remembering she had something to ask him. Glancing around, she noticed his absence from the gym floor. Outside the warehouse, Rhea paused, assuming Hyun was cleaning up again, a task he'd been assigned before. Unaware of the workout session unfolding inside between Hyun and the manager, she lingered, debating whether to knock or wait, her curiosity growing. Outside the warehouse, Rhea froze as muffled sounds reached her ears. Mistaking them for Dong, she scoffed inwardly, assuming he was up to his usual antics. She thought him reckless, always chasing workout regardless of place or partner, and shook her head in disgust. Deciding not to interrupt, she turned and left without opening the door, unaware it was Hyun and the manager inside. Meanwhile, Sang-mi and her mother lounged in front of the TV. Her mother sighed, feeling old lately. Sang-mi teased that it was normal at her age, playfully calling her auntie. Her mother bristled, reminding Sang-mi that Dong had mistaken her for her sister earlier, insisting even he didn't call her auntie. Sang-mi rolled her eyes, explaining Dong was just doing his job, flattering customers to make sales easier. She warned her mother not to fall for empty praise, noting how quickly she'd been swayed by his words. Her mother, undeterred, mused about joining the gym to work out with Sang-mi, who shrugged, telling her to do what she wanted. At the gym, Rhea tidied up equipment while Hyan, nearby, sang to himself. Spotting him, Rhea called out, asking where he'd been, saying she'd been looking for him. Hyan, caught off guard, hesitated, his mind flashing to the warehouse workout with the manager as he fumbled for a response. As Hyan and Rhea talked, the manager approached, just as Dong trudged in, exhausted, muttering about his tough day. The manager praised his effort, giving him a nod. Rhea, overhearing, mistakenly thought Dong had been with the manager in the warehouse earlier, her earlier assumption reinforced. Hyan, curious, asked Rhea why she'd been looking for him. She asked if he was free after closing, hinting at needing his help. Later, Hyan assisted Rhea with her workout, guiding her through lifts. His mind wandered briefly, distracted thoughts creeping in, but he scolded himself to focus, encouraging her for the final rep. Rhea, grateful, asked for stretching help, and Hyan obliged, carefully supporting her. Afterward, Rhea thanked him, apologizing for taking his time when he was already stretched thin. She admitted her busy schedule left little room for her own training and felt bad for asking, knowing he was equally swamped. Hyan brushed it off, saying he had no plans and preferred this over sitting at home. Rhea teased him about not having a girlfriend to meet, referencing the girl from the previous night. Hyan clarified Sang-mi was just a friend, not a girlfriend, emphasizing the distinction. Rhea, relieved, said she'd worried Sang-mi might misinterpret their closeness, but Hyan laughed, saying Sang-mi's misunderstandings didn't bother him. He asked if Rhea had a boyfriend, and she revealed she'd been single for a while, surprising him. As they stretched, Hyan grew curious, asking why Rhea, a talented and likely well-known coach in Gangnam, joined their modest gym. Rhea's expression shifted, and she promised to share the reason if they grew closer later, standing abruptly. Hyan, confused by her sudden change, wondered if he'd overstepped. She thanked him again for his help, ending the session and offered to drive him home. In her car, Rhea was silent, saying nothing the entire ride. At his place, she bid him a curt goodbye and drove off. Hyan, puzzled, replayed their conversation, questioning if he'd said something wrong. He wondered if touching her during stretches had made her uncomfortable, or if their friendship wasn't as solid as he'd thought. Women, he sighed, were hard to understand, leaving him clueless about her abrupt shift. Unbeknownst to him, a man in a car watched from the shadows, his gaze fixed on Hyan, his intentions unclear but ominous. The gym hummed with activity as members worked out. Hyan coached a female client, correcting her form, urging her to engage her core muscles rather than just lifting her waist. He gently adjusted her posture, causing her to flinch slightly from the contact, and praised her when she got it right, encouraging her to maintain that technique. She nodded, understanding. From a distance, Dong observed, his thoughts bitter. He noted Hyan's recent success, feeling like a failure in comparison, his own efforts falling short. Glancing over, he caught Sang-mi also watching Hyan, her expression unreadable. Hyan helped his client stand, ensuring she grasped the exercise and commended her effort. She thanked him warmly, calling him Coach Hyun-soo. Moments later, another attractive member approached, asking to take a photo together. Hyan agreed, and they posed, snapping a few shots as she counted down. Afterward, she gushed about his impressive physique, attributing it to his talent. Sang-mi, watching from afar, muttered under her breath, her jealousy flaring as she glared at Hyan. Later, Dong approached Sang-mi, offering to assist with her workout since he had free time. She declined, saying she'd already finished and was heading to shower before leaving. Dong, undeterred, suggested a massage to relax her muscles, lightly touching her hand. Sang-mi brushed him off politely, promising maybe next time, and walked away. Dong, frustrated, thought to himself that he'd be in trouble soon if he couldn't secure a client to extend their private sessions. Spotting Song exercising alone, Dong saw a chance. He approached, placing a hand on her to adjust her form, claiming it was to help her stretch. Song, startled, questioned his actions, but he dismissed her concern, insisting it was just assistance. He asked if she enjoyed it, suggesting they move to the group exercise room for a proper stretching session, his tone overly familiar. At the gym, a female member approached Hyan, excitedly asking to feel his muscles. As she touched his arm, marveling at its firmness, Sang-mi watched from a distance, her jealousy simmering. Unable to stay, Sang-mi started to leave, but Hyan caught her hand, asking why she was going so soon. She replied sharply that she'd finished training and saw no reason to linger. Hyan, undeterred, urged her to wait, promising they'd grab something delicious to eat once he was done with work. Sang-mi, intrigued by the offer, reluctantly agreed. Later, Sang-mi stood on the road, waiting for Hyan, growing irritated as time dragged on. She muttered about him keeping her waiting, annoyed he hadn't shown up yet. Meanwhile, inside the gym, Dong led Miso into the staff room, locking the door behind them. He greeted her warmly, noting it had been a while since their last close stretching session. Miso, confused, questioned his intentions as he initiated a workout, his touch overly familiar. Dong's thoughts raced, determined to secure her as a client and keep her close, insisting he was helping her stretch despite her hesitation. They continued their session, the atmosphere heavy with his persistence. Back outside, Hyan finally arrived, apologizing to Sang-mi for making her wait. She snapped at him, but as she took in his appearance, her thoughts shifted. Used to seeing him in tracksuits, she hadn't realized how good he looked in his new stylish clothes, a flush creeping to her cheeks. Hyan, noticing her stare, asked if something was on his face. Sang-mi, flustered, denied it, her blush deepening as they stood together, the tension between them palpable. Sang-mi, still irked, asked Hyan why he'd stopped her from going home only to make her wait so long. He apologized profusely, promising to treat her to something delicious to make up for it, urging her to pick any place she wanted. After a moment's thought, Sang-mi suggested a spot and they headed to a Chinese restaurant, settling at a table. Sang-mi teased Hyan, noting the expensive place meant he must be doing well lately. He laughed it off, saying he could treat her to somewhere nice occasionally. Inwardly, Hyan reflected on how he'd neglected Sang-mi since their tense encounter, their relationship strained. He resolved to ease her anger by showing she mattered to him, hoping this outing would mend things. Hyan suggested they drink and they shared a sip, the mood lightening. Sang-mi, curious, asked why trainers drank so often. Hyan, surprised, asked if she thought he overdid it. She pointed out his recent drinking with Seonju, Dong, and the new female trainer, Rhea. Hyan explained Rhea had invited him for drinks as thanks for her help that day, and he couldn't refuse. Sang-mi's eyes widened, asking if Rhea liked him. Hyan, flustered, denied it, insisting they weren't close and Sang-mi was imagining things. His phone buzzed with a call, and Sang-mi, suspicious, asked who it was at this hour. Hyan quickly pocketed it, claiming it was just spam. Sang-mi, unconvinced, stood and called it suspicious, moving to sit beside him to probe further. Hyan, defensive, asked what was suspicious about it, their banter tinged with tension. Meanwhile, at the gym, Dong coached Song through a workout, hinting she'd done similar exercises with Hyan. Song denied it, confused, but Dong pressed, claiming he knew everything and had only pretended to be busy. She accused him of chasing money, seeing through his charm. Dong admitted money mattered but insisted he'd missed her, his tone earnest. Song called him a liar, unconvinced. In his mind, Dong dismissed her doubts, confident she was falling for him, his intentions a mix of strategy and desire as they continued their session. At the restaurant, Sang-mi pressed Hyan about the call, suspecting it was from Rhea. He denied it, but she demanded to see his phone. Hyan resisted, asking why he should show her. Sang-mi, insistent, grabbed for it, and in the struggle, Hyan's hand brushed her awkwardly, leaving them both flushed and shy. He questioned why she was so desperate to check his phone, and she snapped, asking if they were just strangers. Hyan, caught off guard, asked what they were to each other. In his mind, Hyan sighed, not intending for the night to escalate like this. He blamed Sang-mi for pushing for drinks, feeling she'd brought this moment on herself. Leaning in, he kissed her softly. Sang-mi, startled, pulled back, asking what was wrong and if he truly liked her. After a moment's thought, Hyan admitted he liked her a lot, his voice earnest. Meanwhile, at the gym, Song and Dong finished their workout. Song asked if he meant what he said about missing her. Dong, calculating, decided to tell her what she wanted to hear. He hugged her, claiming he missed her so much he thought he'd die. Song, warmed by his words, smiled brightly, her doubts easing. Back at the restaurant, Sang-mi, still reeling, asked Hyan if he was serious about liking her or just trying to charm her into working out. He reassured her his feelings were genuine, asking if she liked him too. Sang-mi admitted she did but confessed she was confused about their relationship and her place in his life. Hyan, puzzled by her uncertainty, pointed out how much time they'd spent together, calling her his irreplaceable and most precious friend. Sang-mi's eyes widened at the word friend, surprise flickering across her face, unsure if that's all he meant. Sang-mi's anger flared as she confronted Hyan, shouting if he kissed and worked out with all his friends, accusing him of seeing her as just a casual partner. Hyan, stunned, tried to explain that wasn't his intention, but she yanked her hand free, calling him a character less and storming off, convinced she now understood his true thoughts about her. Hyan grabbed her hand again, pleading, but Sang-mi told him to leave her alone and left. In his mind, Hyan lamented, wanting to stay close without losing her, his heart sinking. The next day, at the office, Sang-mi sipped coffee, her thoughts circling back to the fight, feeling foolish for dwelling on it. Her chief approached, noting her distracted look and asking if she'd fought with her boyfriend. Sang-mi denied having one, and when the chief mentioned Hyan, suggesting he'd be hurt to hear that, Sang-mi insisted they weren't dating. The chief pressed if there was truly nothing between them, and Sang-mi confirmed there wasn't. Seizing the moment, the chief suggested a blind date, arguing that if Hyan meant nothing, meeting other men shouldn't be an issue. Sang-mi, after a pause, agreed to the date, her resolve hardening. Later, on the road, Sang-mi second-guessed choosing a meeting spot so close to her neighborhood, wondering if it was rude, but reassured herself since the guy had agreed to come. Checking her reflection, she debated if her outfit seemed too eager, then shrugged, deciding it was fine to look pretty. Entering the cafe, she spotted a handsome man and blushed, assuming he was her date. But another man called out to him, revealing the handsome one wasn't her match. The real date, less striking, greeted her, confirming she was Sang-mi, and they sat down. He complimented her physique, noting her personal training, but his tone made Sang-mi uneasy. He boasted they'd get along well since he also loved working out, explaining his lean frame was due to focusing on muscle density rather than mass. He asked if she could tell, lifting his sleeve to show a tattoo, suggesting it might obscure his muscles. Sang-mi, unimpressed, thought of Hyan. She teased him for being skinny, but now realized his body was far more appealing than this man's. Disappointed, she felt misled by the guy's photo, her mind drifting back to Hyan as the date's words faded into the background. As Hyan walked past a restaurant on his way to the gym, he spotted Sang-mi inside with a man, dressed up in a way that caught him off guard. His heart sank as he wondered if she was on a blind date, thinking she'd already moved on from him, the sight stinging more than he expected. Later, during a lunch break at Sang-mi's office, her chief playfully poked her, startling her. Sang-mi yelped, embarrassed in front of coworkers, and asked if the chief found it funny to tease her publicly. The chief, grinning, asked how her blind date went. Sang-mi, hesitant, admitted nothing happened because the guy wasn't her type. The chief teased if she'd been dumped, but Sang-mi clarified it just didn't click. Surprised, the chief remarked the guy looked good in his photo and offered to set up another date, insisting meeting more men increased her chances of finding someone. Sang-mi declined, saying blind dates weren't for her, despite the chief's insistence that persistence was key. Suddenly, Sang-mi slipped, nearly falling, but a handsome man caught her just in time, asking if she was okay. She nodded, flustered, as he sternly told her coworkers to watch their surroundings. They apologized, admitting fault, and he left. Rhea, nearby, leaned in, whispering to Sang-mi about the man's good looks, identifying him as Dong-jun, the new deputy general manager in finance. She described him as capable, well-mannered, and already popular among female employees, urging Sang-mi to act fast if interested before someone else claimed him. Sang-mi, blushing, denied any interest, saying it was her first time seeing him, though her flushed cheeks betrayed a spark of intrigue. Meanwhile, Sang-mi's mother arrived at the gym, ready to explore the place her daughter frequented, her curiosity driving her forward. Sang-mi's mother stepped into the gym, scanning the space curiously. Hyan greeted her warmly, assuming she was there to meet Sang-mi, who hadn't arrived yet. She clarified she'd come to try working out herself, catching him by surprise. Hyan praised her decision, offering to make time to coach her personally, given their connection, and gestured for her to follow. She declined, revealing she'd already been assigned a coach, a tall, young man she described vaguely. Hyan, piecing it together, realized she meant Dong, wondering how they'd crossed paths. Across the gym, Dong grumbled to himself, feeling degraded as he carried towels, a far cry from his usual role. Spotting Sang-mi's mother, he recognized her instantly, his mood shifting. She waved, calling out to him, and Dong returned a polite good morning. Thrusting the towels into Hyan's hands, he led her away, directing her to follow him. Hyan, holding the towels, thought wryly that both mother and daughter seemed drawn to Dong, bypassing him entirely. His mind drifted to Sang-mi, wondering how her blind date went and if he should call her. He dismissed the idea, convinced their connection was over, a pang of regret settling in. Later, Dong sat with Sang-mi's mother, finalizing a contract. He felt an odd nervousness, his confidence faltering. Glancing at her, he found himself unexpectedly flustered, questioning why he was reacting this way. She remarked playfully that her name might seem cheesy, catching him off guard. Dong stumbled over his words, denying it was cheesy and clumsily complimenting her, likening her to a beautiful flower. Blushing, he cringed internally at his awkwardness, wondering why he'd said something so foolish. She tilted her head, asking if he meant her name was pretty. Dong, doubling down, compared it to a springtime bloom, then suggested she head to the locker room to change, eager to move past the moment. Afterward, alone, he sighed, berating himself for his nervous babbling, feeling like a fool. The manager approached, her tone stern, reminding Dong of his recent poor performance and warning him to step up. Before he could respond, Sang-mi's mother emerged in a striking blue tracksuit, drawing eyes. The manager, stunned, remarked that she was copying her style, while Dong's jaw dropped, equally surprised by her bold look. Sang-mi's mother, dressed in her blue tracksuit, glanced around the gym, feeling out of place. She thought to herself that people no longer wore such outfits and regretted not asking Sang-mi for fashion advice. Spotting Dong, she approached, announcing her arrival. He greeted her warmly, suggesting they start with light stretching since it was her first day. Guiding her with a hand on her back, right in front of the manager's watchful eyes, he led her to begin. As they stretched, Dong guided her form, but his thoughts betrayed his unease. He found it strangely difficult to touch her, his usual confidence faltering. Noticing the manager's gaze, he forced himself to adjust her posture, instructing her to keep her arms crossed. Inwardly, he sighed, unable to shake his hesitation. Sang-mi's mother, enjoying the session, remarked she should have started working out sooner, feeling refreshed. Dong encouraged her, saying daily exercise would tone and flex her body. She misheard, asking him to repeat, and he stammered, quickly dismissing it and urging her to be careful heading home. She thanked him, playfully wondering if she should call him teacher. Dong, flustered, said she could call him anything, waving as she left. The manager stormed over, grabbing Dong's ear and dragging him to the staff room. She berated him, questioning if he'd forgotten his job, mocking his sudden decency and flustered behavior around Sang-mi's mother, calling him a joke for acting like a shy teenager. Dong mumbled that it was because she was Sang-mi's mother, but the manager scoffed, asking if he was Sang-mi's trainer or boyfriend, dismissing his excuse. She reminded him she never asked him to cross lines, only to use his usual charm, which she called his specialty. Dong apologized, head low. Unimpressed, she ordered him to clean the warehouse and go home, slamming the door as she left. Alone, Dong sighed, questioning why he'd spoken so foolishly. After cleaning, he sat, too tired to leave immediately, deciding to rest. Drifting into a dream, he saw Sang-mi's mother, who teased that he hadn't been properly thanked for his help. She suggested he'd been eager to touch her during stretches and offered to let him now. Dong, flustered, denied it, but she flipped the question, asking if he wanted her to touch him. Suddenly awake, he gasped, startled by the vivid dream. Shaking his head, he muttered denial, grabbed his things, and left, rattled by his own thoughts. Dong emerged from the warehouse, spotting the manager stretching alone. She looked up surprised, asking why he was still there. He admitted he'd fallen asleep while cleaning. Noticing his disheveled state, she teased if he'd had an inappropriate dream, pointing out his wet pants. Dong, flustered, denied it vehemently, insisting it was impossible. She pressed, questioning what he'd been doing instead of cleaning, noting his distracted behavior lately. Playfully, she offered to help him relax if he was stressed, commenting on the mess, and asked if he'd brought someone into the warehouse. Dong denied it, but she persisted, curious about his sorry state. Shaking her head, she suggested they work out and they began a light session, her tone a mix of scolding and amusement. Later, at Sang-mi's house, Sang-mi walked in, calling out to her mother. Her mother greeted her and Sang-mi, shocked, noticed she was wearing her clothes. She demanded to know why, arguing it wasn't right. Her mother laughed, saying as her mother, she could wear what she wanted and offered Sang-mi her clothes in return. Sang-mi protested, saying the outfit looked odd on her, too youthful for her age. Her mother, unfazed, boasted she'd been complimented on her shape at the gym. Sang-mi rolled her eyes, calling her gullible and explaining it was just business flattery. Her mother, undeterred, asked if she should do a hamstring stretch, beginning to exercise. A knock interrupted and Hyan entered, calling for Sang-mi. Seeing a figure stretching, he mistook her for Sang-mi, surprised she was working out at home after saying she wouldn't. He wondered where her mother was, sure he'd heard her voice, questioning if he'd misheard. Admiring the figure, he recalled advice about speaking through actions when words failed. Gently, he touched her back, unaware it was Sang-mi's mother, his gesture soft but misguided. Sang-mi's mother froze, startled by the touch, as Hyan, realizing his mistake, saw it was her and not Sang-mi. His face flushed with shock, and he stammered an apology, addressing her as auntie before hastily retreating, mortified. Later, alone in his room, Hyan slumped, muttering to himself that it was all over, the embarrassment weighing heavily. At the gym, Dong and the manager worked out, their movements synchronized. Mid-session, Dong's focus wavered as he imagined Sang-mi's mother's face superimposed on the manager's, unsettling him. He questioned why her image intruded at such a moment, shaking off the distraction with effort. The next morning, Hyan paced his apartment, sighing over how to face Sang-mi's mother after the incident, his anxiety mounting. His mother, noticing his restless wandering, scolded him for moping and asked why he was so annoying. Hyan mentioned he was on leave, and she told him to stop wasting time, handing him side dishes to deliver to Sang-mi's house as thanks for the cucumbers they'd received. Hyan hesitated, confirming it was Sang-mi's place, his unease evident, but his mother brushed it off, asking what was wrong. On his way, Hyan thought about Sang-mi likely being at work, wondering how to start a conversation with her mother. Arriving, he knocked, assuming no one was home and preparing to leave. Suddenly, Sang-mi's mother opened the door, greeting him warmly, noting Sang-mi was at work. Hyan clarified he needed to talk to her about something, and she invited him inside, her tone casual but curious. Inside Sang-mi's house, her mother asked Hyan to wait while she dried her hair. As she walked away, Hyun's gaze lingered on her back, but he quickly scolded himself to focus. In her room, she changed and Hyun sat, rehearsing what to say. She returned, apologizing for the delay, and Hyan assured her it was fine. She asked what he wanted to discuss, and he explained his mother had sent side dishes to thank her for cucumbers from last time, handing them over. She smiled, saying it wasn't necessary, and asked him to thank his mother. Hyan, seizing the moment, apologized for the previous day's mistake, admitting he'd thought she was Sang-mi and acted foolishly. She waved it off, assuming he'd been drunk, a common error. He clarified he wasn't drunk, insisting on his regret, but she reassured him not to overthink it, her tone light. Relieved, Hyan thanked her, addressing her as aunt, and prepared to leave. She asked where he was headed, mentioning Sang-mi had left her USB drive at home and gone to work. Hyan offered to deliver it for her, noting he was on leave, and she accepted gratefully. At Sang-mi's office, she waited for her mother, texting on her phone. Her male boss approached, teasingly asking who she was messaging so happily during work hours. Sang-mi, flustered, claimed it was official business, but he pointed out that such matters should use office software or email per regulations, resting a hand on her shoulder. She apologized, and he handed her a black envelope, instructing her to deliver it to the financial department leader, noting she seemed to have the least work. Sang-mi knocked on the financial department door, entering nervously. Seeing the man who'd saved her from falling, she realized he was the group leader, marveling at his young age for such a role. Handing over the documents, she stood in awe. He asked if they'd met before, recognizing her as Sang-mi from marketing. Surprised, she asked how he knew, and he admitted checking her profile on the company intranet after seeing her at the cafe, hoping he didn't sound inappropriate. Sang-mi assured him it was fine as the data was public and thanked him for his help that day, having forgotten earlier. He smiled, suggesting they grab lunch since it was nearly break time. Meanwhile, Hyan walked toward Sang-mi's office, thinking about their strained friendship. Though he tried not to care, his heart tugged otherwise. He decided to gauge her tone when they met, recalling her mother's mention of a lobby meeting. Pulling out his phone to call, he froze, spotting Sang-mi with the man from the financial department. His chest tightened and he called out her name, his voice carrying across the distance. Hyan handed Sang-mi the USB drive, scolding her for leaving such an important item at home and troubling her mother. Sang-mi, surprised, asked how he got it, and he explained he was helping her mother out, then nodded toward the man beside her, asking who he was. Sang-mi began to introduce him as a company colleague, but the man, Kang, cut in, greeting Hyan warmly. Mistaking him for Sang-mi's younger cousin running errands, Kang asked what grade he was in, guessing 4th year and joking about graduation struggles. Hyan, taken aback, muttered in disbelief, while Sang-mi quickly clarified they were friends, not cousins. Kang apologized for the mix-up and he and Hyun shook hands, the moment awkward but civil. Later that night, Rhea drove through the city, noticing a car tailing her. Recognizing it, her pulse quickened and she sped toward the gym, deciding to shower and regroup. In the gym's shower, she was startled when someone grabbed her from behind, causing her to slip. It was the manager who laughed off Rhea's reaction, asking why she was so jumpy. Rhea, shaken, brushed it off as nothing, but the manager, concerned, noted she looked unwell, suggesting she'd been overworking and offering a day off. Rhea declined, insisting she'd prepare for her next lesson, and left abruptly. The manager watched her go, puzzled by her behavior. Meanwhile, Hyun lay on his bed, fuming over Kang's little cousin comment, annoyed at the man's assumption. He was equally bothered that Sang-mi hadn't invited him to lunch, wondering if she and Kang had eaten alone and what their relationship was. Curiosity gnawed at him, but he struggled to think of how to ask her without sounding intrusive. As he reached for his phone, it rang, displaying Rhea's name. Surprised, he answered, and Rhea, her voice tense, apologized and urgently asked him to come to the gym immediately. Outside the gym, the man from the car waited in the shadows, his presence unnoticed but menacing. The man's sinister glare fixed on Rhea, sending a chill through her. Gripped by fear, she urged Hyun over the phone to hurry to the gym. Hyun, alarmed, asked what was wrong, pressing for details, but Rhea, her voice trembling, apologized and abruptly hung up, leaving him confused and worried. Rhea stepped outside, heading to her car, her thoughts racing. She resolved not to drag Hyun into her personal troubles, noting the man seemed gone. Planning to leave quickly, she was startled when he appeared at her car window, greeting her with a menacing tone and suggesting they chat, grabbing her hand. Rhea, tense, asked what he wanted to discuss. He mocked her for thinking he'd left, tightening his grip on both her hands, asking why she came out so soon. Panicked, Rhea demanded to know what he was doing. He grinned, calling it a rare chance to catch up with her, his tone dripping with menace. She insisted she had nothing to say, but he pressed, bringing up money he owed her, claiming his business needed just 30 million won more to succeed, promising to repay her if she helped. Rhea refused, telling him to forget the debt and stop asking for loans. His demeanor darkened, cursing her for being stingy and suggesting they find a place to talk, his gaze unsettling. When she resisted, he hinted at rekindling old times, his words laced with inappropriate intent, which she firmly rejected. Hyun arrived, interrupting the tense scene. The man, annoyed, asked who he was, but Hyun firmly demanded he release Rhea, admitting he didn't know their history but insisting he stop. The man sneered, telling Hyun to back off and mind his own business, mocking his skinny frame and twisting his hand painfully. Rhea, alarmed, pleaded for him to let Hyun go. Hyun, wincing but defiant, stood up, assuring Rhea he was fine. The man, undeterred, declared he still had business with Rhea, grabbing her hand again and making crude remarks about her appearance, suggesting they relive past moments before discussing business. Rhea, resolute, refused, her voice steady despite her fear. Hyun's gaze hardened, his protective stance unwavering as the confrontation hung in the balance. The man dragged Rhea, chuckling as her struggles seemed to thrill him. Hyun, fueled by anger, sprang up and delivered a swift kick to the man's face. Enraged, the man grabbed Hyun, mocking him as a skinny monkey delusional about impressing Rhea, and slapped him hard, calling him trash. Rhea, desperate, pleaded for the man to stop, offering to go with him if he'd leave Hyun alone. Seizing the moment, Hyun landed a sharp kick to the man's cucumber, calling him a cheating pig and a brutal bastard, challenging him to try more. The man, clutching himself, vowed to teach Hyun a lesson, but police sirens cut through the air, halting him. Hyun, panting, revealed he'd deliberately provoked the man to stall, knowing help was coming, taunting that he hadn't just stood there taking hits for nothing. The man, cursing, warned Hyun to watch his back and fled into the night. Rhea rushed to Hyun, asking if he was okay. He nodded, insisting he was fine, but she noticed blood trickling from his lip, alarmed. Hyun, touching his face, seemed unaware of the injury. Concerned, Rhea took him to her place to tend to his wounds. At Rhea's apartment, Hyun sat, privately embarrassed about getting beaten, but grateful it led him to her room. Rhea, grabbing a first aid kit, sat beside him to disinfect his cuts, warning it might sting. She dismissed his thanks, guiltily saying his injuries were her fault. Hyun, curious, asked what had happened with the man. Rhea hesitated, referencing his earlier question about why she left Gangnam for their gym. when she'd promised to share if they grew closer. She apologized, admitting she'd wanted to tell him then but found it too humiliating. Tears welled up, and, overcome, she grabbed Hyan, asking him to cheer her up, her vulnerability raw. Hyan and Rhea held each other tightly, the moment heavy with emotion. Rhea, her voice breaking, called herself an idiot, but Hyan gently rebuked her, insisting she was an incredible woman. He told her that whatever happened with that man in her past didn't define her, emphasizing that her daily strength and presence proved her worth. Rhea, surprised, asked if he truly saw her as perfect. Hyan, admitting he wasn't eloquent, praised her kindness to gym members, her dedication to fitness, and her passionate, charismatic approach to her work, qualities he'd admired since meeting her. Rhea, blushing, asked if he meant it, her heart lifted by his words. Hyan affirmed he'd felt this way from the start, his sincerity shining through. Flattered, Rhea leaned in, kissing him softly, her gratitude overwhelming. Hyan, caught off guard, apologized, pulling back slightly, but Rhea, smiling, invited him to touch her if he wanted, saying she'd allow it with him. Their connection grew stronger, and they began a workout together, their movements careful and reflecting their newfound relation. After their workout, Rhea thanked Hyan, her voice soft but earnest. He asked what for, and she simply said for everything, her gratitude encompassing his support. She opened up about the man Hyan had confronted, her ex, expressing disbelief at his cruelty and blaming herself for her poor taste. She explained they met when she was his gym instructor, their first encounter professional but quickly friendly. In a flashback, Rhea coached him, correcting his arm movements to prevent injury, her touch guiding his form. They bonded during lessons, their rapport growing fast. Hyan, surprised, remarked on how quickly things progressed, struggling to understand how she ended up with him. Rhea admitted she valued inner qualities over appearances, a perspective Hyan acknowledged. She recounted how the man first asked to borrow money, claiming he'd misused company funds and needed to cover tax issues. Trusting him, she lent him the amount. Days later, he asked for more, citing ongoing tax problems, and she complied again, her faith in him unwavering. When he begged for a final loan, she hesitated, noting he hadn't repaid her, but his persistence wore her down. Rhea's expression darkened as she recalled overhearing him on the phone, bragging about manipulating her, claiming he'd nearly drained her finances and planned to leave her broke. Confronting him, she called him out, demanding her money and ending things. He turned violent, grabbing her hair and insisting she uphold her promise to lend him money even after their breakup. Rhea, trembling as she spoke to Hyan, admitted she'd tried to bury the memories, desperate to move on, but feared he'd come after her again, her fear overwhelming. Hyan, his voice steady, reassured her, promising to protect her no matter what. Comforted, they resumed their workout, their movements a quiet affirmation of their bond, Rhea's fears eased by his presence. After their workout, as Hyan prepared to leave Rhea's place, she thanked him for the day. He expressed his gratitude in return, touched by her words. Rhea suggested they grab a meal together, but Hyan declined, saying he needed to head back and prep for work. She offered to drive him home, but he insisted she rest, politely refusing and heading out. Walking home, Hyan reflected on his time with Rhea, a mix of warmth and resolve in his thoughts. He acknowledged their connection but reminded himself it wasn't time to celebrate, not with the threat of her ex looming. Rhea was counting on his protection, and that responsibility weighed heavily. Nearing his building, he spotted Sang-mi stepping out. He greeted her, asking if she was off to work. She nodded, then noticed the bruises and bandages on his face, asking what happened. Hyan brushed it off as nothing, but Sang-mi, concerned, touched his face, wondering if he'd gotten into a drunken fight. He denied it, urging her to hurry to avoid being late. As she left, Hyan climbed the stairs, his thoughts turning inward. He questioned why he felt a pang of guilt toward Sang-mi, unsettled by his own emotions. Later, at the gym, the space buzzed with activity. Dong coached Sang-mi's mother, praising her effort but noting her pose needed tweaking. She adjusted, asking if she had it right, but Dong, blushing, struggled to explain, stammering as he tried to correct her. She attempted again, still off, and, frustrated, grabbed his hand, urging him to teach her properly. Guiding her, he showed the correct form, and she smiled, saying it felt better. Playfully, she teased him for always calling her Sang-mi's mom, asking when he'd stop and suggesting he call her Nuna instead. Dong, caught off guard, froze, his surprise evident as her words hung in the air, their dynamic shifting.